Chapter 294, The Master and Apprentice Arrive Together. Because of the red dust elixir, Wuxia had first cultivated the supreme forgetful love technique. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, least now, even if she were to experience the trials of love again, it would be more difficult for her than for ordinary people. Because the supreme forgetful love technique allowed Wuxia to remain unfettered and undisturbed by emotions, she found it extremely difficult to be moved by them. She locked gazes with the calm eyes of Wuxia. A moment later, Yun Wanshang spoke. "Xiu, are you sure about this? Love is unfathomable, unknowable in its beginning, resting place, bond, solution, track, or end, which makes this love calamity not so easy to overcome. You invest deep feelings, yet you are naive about love, likely to become deeply entrapped." Yun Wanshang voiced such words. Love is unknowable in its origin, indescribable, beyond words. This was her own realization. Now that her disciple was cultivating the supreme forgetful love technique and wished to transcend the love trial, it inevitably worried her as a master. Initially, under Wuxia's persistence, she had agreed to a period of 3 years, secretly hoping that Wuxia would give up. "Master, Xiu has made up her mind." Wuxia's eyes were as clear as autumn waters under the moonlight, and she spoke softly. Her voice was calm, yet resolute. In these days, she had come to understand the nature of emotions and the meaning behind the supreme forgetful love. But her heart, set on pursuing the Tao and content with dying in the evening after hearing it in the morning, had not a single thought of surrender. "It seems you have made up your mind. I won't dissuade you any further," said the master. Yun Wanshang looked at Wuxia and sighed softly. She knew that once her disciple made a decision, she would not easily change her mind. At the same time, she felt a tremendous sense of relief. She was heartened to see such a strong commitment to the Tao in her disciple. After all, cultivation isn't just about innate talent. It's also about a person's character, temperament, mindset, and understanding, among other things. She had taken on Wuxia as a disciple, not just for her talent but also for her temperament and comprehension. Since Wuxia spoke in such a manner, she chose to believe in her disciple. To believe she could pierce through the false and truly cultivate the supreme forgetful love. "You've spoken of this matter, but is there something else you wish to tell your master?" Yun Wanshang's face broke into a smile, and she reached out to touch Wuxia's head. She sensed that the other had more to say. "Master, the opportunity for my breakthrough lies in an old friend of mine, and it was thanks to his help that Xiu was able to escape. So, Xiu wishes to request Master to refine a golden crow elixir." Wuxia pursed her lips and spoke. Golden crow elixir. Yun Wanshang's gaze sharpened upon hearing this. She immediately guessed what her disciple wanted to do. Golden crow elixir, second-ranked top-grade elixir medicines. Containing a strand of great sun essence. Immensely beneficial for those with young constitutions in their cultivation. And this golden crow elixir has another effect. The essence within, coupled with Wuxia's moonlight spirit body, could enhance each other's effect. If it is used during foundation establishment, there's a chance to build the Sun-Moon Tao foundation. However, to reach this step, one must engage in dual cultivation with a partner. "Please grant me this, Master," Wuxia said as she knelt before her silent master. "Oh, my foolish child," Yun Wanshang sighed. She helped Wuxia up and said, "The person owes you a debt of enlightenment and has also saved your life. Naturally, you must repay this kindness. But afterwards, can you truly break through all this?" Yun Wanshang questioned. To forget with the supreme forgetful love technique, one must experience the trial of love. The deeper the love trial, the better the effect after shattering illusions. But Wuxia's situation also made her worry that her disciple might get lost in it. "Master, I can," Wuxia assured, her cool and detached face showing a gentle smile. "All right, you should go back and rest." I will ask Elder Yun to refine the elixir, and I'll inform you once it is ready. Yun Wanshang touched Xiao Xia's head again, her voice tinged with pity. In this era, the status of a master-disciple relationship was extraordinary. She regarded Xiao Xia almost as her own daughter. Seeing Xiao Xia like this naturally left her feeling incredibly complex. Yes, master, you will take her leave now. Xiao Xia bowed and withdrew. After Xiao Xia left the hall, Yun Wanshang's expression turned indifferent. Then she transformed into a rainbow light and arrived at Qiyang Peak, a majestic golden magical sword appearing in her hand. Boom! With magical sword in hand, Yun Wanshang slashed fiercely towards the peak's palace. Countless golden runes flashed, causing a golden divine thunder to strike down from the clear skies, alongside her sword. Yun Wanshang, what are you doing? Inside Qiyang Peak, an authoritative and resounding voice spoke out. 9 red fire dragons soared into the sky, forming a barrier to block the sword. What's going on? It's the Kaiyun Peak Master. What is the Kaiyun Peak Master doing, suddenly attacking our Qiyang Peak? Many disciples of Qiyang Peak suddenly looked up, staring in shock and confusion at the scene unfolding before them. Song Qingji, show yourself. Yun Wanshang held her magical sword aloof, her expression unfazed. Kaiyun junior sister, Qingji is in seclusion. What do you want from her? A middle-aged man donning a red magical robe with a dignified face emerged from Qiyang Peak. My disciple was attacked outside, and within the Qingyun sect, only your Dao partner, Song Qingji, has borne a grudge against me since the core formation affair. Her nature is dark, and she always likes to engage in sly tricks behind the scenes, so she must be involved in this matter, Yun Wanshang declared coldly. Kaiyun junior sister, you can't just make such accusations. For the past days, Qingji has been in seclusion. How could she have acted against your disciple? The true person of Qiyang spoke with a less than pleased expression, his voice grave. Chapter 295, The Master and Apprentice arrive together. And at this moment, another divine rainbow flew in, landing on Qiyang Peak and looking towards the 2 nascent soul immortals. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, least seeing the newcomer, Yun Wanshang also sheathed her magical sword. Looking at Qiyang Immortal, she said coldly, whether it is or not, Brother Qiyang, you could ask Song Qingji. If my disciple encounters any more accidents, then this matter cannot be separated from you and your Qiyang Peak. When that happens, don't blame me for being impolite. After Yun Wanshang had finished speaking, she turned and left without looking back, transforming into a rainbow light and returning to Kaiyun Peak, leaving behind the disciples of Qiyang Peak somewhat dumbfounded. Although among them, some had heard about the grudge between their peak's master's wife and the master of Kaiyun Peak. But that was just what they had heard, rumors. Today's incident let them know that these rumors were true. However, they dared not discuss such matters. Qiyang junior brother, you also know Kaiyun's temperament. You can also ask junior sister Song about this. If it has nothing to do with junior sister Song, then just clear things up with her when the time comes, said the Qingyun sect leader after seeing Yun Wanshang depart. Sect leader brother, how could Qingji possibly do such a thing, and moreover, Qingji has been in seclusion these past few days, said Qiyang Immortal, cupping his hands. That's good then, replied the Qingyun sect leader, not saying more. He transformed into a divine rainbow and departed. Straight away, Qiyang Immortal's face turned somewhat somber as he approached a grand and luxurious hall. Inside the hall, on the bed, lay a woman around 30, her black silky hair coiled into a bun, wearing a green Taoist robe, lying on her side while holding an ancient scroll. Qingji, has the matter regarding Yun Wanshang's disciple anything to do with you? Qiyang Immortal asked the woman on the bed, speaking gravely. Could it be that, in your heart, I would do such a thing? The woman in green put down the scroll and sat up slightly, looking at her Tao companion. I hope not, the Qiyang Immortal sighed helplessly as he looked at his Dao companion's expression. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Since returning to Qingzhou Mountain, Lu Chongqing had kept a low profile. Other than 2 trips to the Red Leaf Valley Market, he seldom left the house. He focused on his cultivation, talisman making, and spending time with his wives. Half a month after returning, the second mistress gave birth to her second child. It was a boy. Fortunately, the child also possessed a spiritual root. But not as good as Lu Qingshan. It was only a 7th grade spiritual root. Nevertheless, Lu Chongqing felt very satisfied. He could not help but wonder if the reason Lu Miaohuan's children had spiritual roots both times was related to her consistently good nutrition. After all, there were such mystical sayings in the cultivation world. And during Lu Miaohuan's pregnancy, Lu Yuanding always provided various nutritious supplements. One day, in the practice room. Lu Chongqing sat cross-legged, exhaling lightly as he looked at the black-red small cauldron floating in front of him. This black-red small cauldron was the magic artifact embryo he had acquired from the red-robed youth. Although this magic artifact embryo was precious and worth quite a bit of money, he found selling it troublesome and preferred to use it to enhance his strength. Thus, he had spent the time he would have used to refine the 9-treasured jade rui on this magic artifact embryo. Now, at last, the refinement was complete, and it could be condensed into his body. I will condense this magic artifact embryo into the bones of my hand, Lu Chongqing decided as he looked at his right hand, already having chosen the spot for condensation. After all, the skull and spine were relatively dangerous and problematic, not to be considered for the moment, and with the black dragon magical bead in his sternum, only the limbs were left to choose from. Sishich. Without further thought, Lu Chongqing activated the 100 Refinements treasure body art, causing treasure light to flow through his palm, as if staining it gold. Under the concentration of spiritual power, the black-red small cauldron began to integrate bit by bit with his palm. Just like that, time trickled by, and the entire small cauldron completely integrated into Lu Chongqing's palm, solidifying within his hand bones. On the back of his hand, the pattern of a small cauldron emerged. At the same time, a mighty and overwhelming power began to wash over Lu Chongqing's flesh, meridians, and bones. This allowed Lu Chongqing's nearly breakthrough 100 Refinements treasure body art to immediately advance under the force of this magic artifact embryo. Boom boom boom. Sounds reminiscent of mighty rivers surging and rushing echoed within Lu Chongqing. The noise grew clearer and more resonant, resembling a divine blacksmith forging a powerful weapon, strong and sonorous. Lu Chongqing's physique shone brighter and brighter, as if a layer of golden film were flowing over his skin, bursting forth with a dazzling radiance like a blood rainbow. After a long while, the divine light within Lu Chongqing's body gradually receded, revealing his flawless and robust muscular frame. 100 Refinements treasure body art, 3rd level. Lu Chongqing felt the immense power within him, his lips curved upwards in a smile. Just as I suspected, integrating the second magic artifact into my body was less effective, which is likely because it's only a magic artifact embryo. However, it's still quite good. With the black dragon magical bead and this magic artifact embryo constantly nurturing and refining my body, I estimate that within 10 years, my 100 Refinements treasure body art will break through to the 4th level. Moreover, once I have finished refining the 9-treasured jade rui, this speed will increase even further. Lu Chongqing's face was filled with joy as he looked at the small cauldron pattern on his hand. With a slight movement of his mental spirit, the pattern vanished from sight. He then took out his green-face sword from his storage bag and lightly slashed his arm with it twice. Seeing no effect, he chopped with more force, another 2 times. Noticing only faint white marks and red welts, Lu Chongqing couldn't help but nod in satisfaction. My physical body is comparable to a high-grade magic artifact. With my physical strength alone, I can now easily slay energy refinement middle-stage cultivators, and even some in the late stage, right? Lu Chongqing stored away the green-faced sword, quite pleased with his physical condition. He knew his fist was strong enough to clash head-on with middle-grade magic artifacts. As for high-grade magic artifacts, Lu Chongqing believed there was no need. After all, harming one's own flesh and blood was truly inadvisable. And he had cultivated the 100 Refinements treasure body art for many years but had never used it to directly confront others, treating it more like physical training. It's been so long, I wonder how Xiao Xie is doing now. Lu Chongqing couldn't help but think of Xiao Xie. After all, she had said that after resolving her matters at Qingyun Sept, she would return to cultivate with him. 3 months had passed by now. Meanwhile, at Qingyun Sept, Shiyu, this is the Golden Crow elixir. Yun Wanshang handed a porcelain bottle to Xiao Xie. Thank you, master. Upon hearing this, Xiao Xie revealed a hint of joy. She then opened the bottle and glanced inside. Immediately, she saw a dazzling elixir that looked like a flame alight. It was the Golden Crow elixir indeed. When do you plan to descend the mountain? Yun Wanshang inquired. She knew that Xiao Xie had stayed on Kaiyun Peak all these days, waiting for the Golden Crow elixir to be ready. Master, I plan to leave the mountain today. Xiao Xie pressed her lips together, her cool and aloof expression softening a little. Good, if you encounter any emergencies, send word to your master immediately. Yun Wanshang sighed softly as she looked at her disciple's demeanor. Yes, master. Xiao Xie's face broke into a slight smile. She then bowed deeply and walked out of the grand hall, taking flight on her Cloud Veil magic artifact and leaving Qingyun Sect. Next, she rode a white crane, heading towards Qingzhou Mountain. Not long after Xiao Xie left, Yun Wanshang stood quietly by the railing of her palace. Her heart couldn't help but worry about Xiao Xie. After all, the matter of the emotional tribulation greatly concerned her disciple's future and commanded her attention. Soon after, Yun Wanshang gazed in the direction Xiao Xie had gone and transformed into a rainbow of light that also departed from Qingyun Sect. Chapter 296, Yun Wanshang, How Could It Be Him? _1 Red Leaf Valley Market. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, least the streets were sparsely populated with pedestrians, hardly bustling with activity. Lu Chongqing carried his daughter Lu Qingzhu while strolling through the market with his wife, Lu Miaoge. Little bamboo, do you like this? Lu Miaoge, her hair piled up high, her features delicate and gentle, held up a small toy to ask her daughter. Oh. Lu Qingzhu gave it a few glances before responding. It seems you don't like it. Lu Chongqing, observing his daughter's reaction, said with a smile. The little girl was already 2 years old. She was as cute as a button, extremely adorable. It's just that she had a somewhat simple and straightforward personality. She was not fussy or noisy, quiet, and well-behaved. Even when Lu Chongqing pinched her lightly for no reason, she would just look up at him, her father, with a wronged expression. She was entirely different from the mischievous and active Lu Qingshan. Isn't that Miss Lu Miaoge? Your child has grown so big already. No wonder Mr. Lu, the talisman master, is so devoted to the Lu family. It seems your family's investments are quite substantial. At this moment, a group of men and women approached from not far away. One of the young men in blue robes, upon seeing Lu Chongqing and Lu Miaoge, had a smirk and spoke teasingly. Third young master, you, are we that familiar with you? Lu Chongqing turned his head, his expression impassive, and spoke indifferently. This young man in blue robes was none other than Yuning Yuan, the third young master of the Yu family, who had once tried to recruit him at the Nine Dragons Market. As for the third young master of the Yu family, he had no favorable impression of him. Or rather, he had no favorable impression of the entire Yu family. After all, based on his conjecture, the assaults on Lu Miaoge and himself during his return trip were very likely orchestrated by the Yu family. When the third young master of the Yu family had come to the Nine Dragons market to recruit him, the incident might have been related to them. All these matters were engraved in his memory. Once his strength was sufficient, he would settle these accounts. Humph. Yuning Yuan saw that Lu Chongqing gave him no regard and his expression darkened. But he did nothing more than give a cold snort. After all, the Red Leaf Valley Market was considered his family's marketplace. It was still in its initial phase of development. He wouldn't start a conflict within the market and risk tarnishing its reputation. Otherwise, faced with Lu Changsheng's slight, he would not have let it go so easily. Lu Chongqing, after Yuning Yuan left, he glanced back at Lu Chongqing once more. He knew in his heart that Lu Chongqing was no simple character. The man had saved Lu Miaoge before, and he had come out unscathed after the assassination attempts he had ordered. During the battle between the Lu and Bai families that led to the downfall of Red Leaf Valley, Chongqing played a significant role. He was aware that the latter was not someone easy to handle. Chongqing, you should still be careful with the Yu family, Lu Miaoge said softly to Lu Chongqing. Although the Lu, Bai, Qing, and Yu families had collaborated to establish the Red Leaf Valley Market, the relations among these four families had not significantly improved. After all, the incident in Red Leaf Valley had been quite unpleasant. Sister Miaoge, I know, Lu Chongqing nodded in response. He was now a core member of the Lu family and was privy to some of the intricacies involved. After continuing their shopping for a while, the couple headed back to the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop with their daughter. As for Lu Changsheng's owned Peace Talisman Hall, he would stop by monthly to check the accounts and replenish talismans. If he was too busy, he would let Lu Miaoge help out. Mainly because the foot traffic in Red Leaf Valley Market was still rather average. The monthly income primarily depended on his few supreme talismans, and there was not much to look into. Little Bamboo, haven't you fallen asleep yet? Upon returning to the third floor of the spiritual talisman shop, Lu Chongqing, thinking his daughter had fallen asleep in his arms, looked down to find a pair of bright eyes gazing back. Daddy, I'm not sleepy, Lu Qingzhu said in her baby voice. The little head nestled in Lu Changsheng's arms, and her tender face gently rubbed against him. Are you hungry, then? Looking at his daughter's adorable manner, Lu Chongqing felt immense satisfaction and love, giving her milky cheek a playful nibble. Oh. The little girl pondered briefly and then nodded with her lips pursed. You're hungry and you don't say it yourself, you little simpleton, Lu Chongqing chuckled as he heard her. He immediately took out a milk bottle and a jade bottle from the storage bag. They contained spiritual dew, spiritual honey, and milk from spiritual beasts. As a father to over 100 children, he had long acquired a storage bag specifically for storing food for the kids. After mixing the milk, Lu Chongqing skillfully fed his child. Children of this age could already hold the milk bottle by themselves. Lu Miaoge, watching Lu Chongqing feed their child, lingered with a gentle expression for a moment before heading to the talisman room to make talismans. She had successfully created a supreme talisman last year. But her success rate remained low. Creating supreme talismans was still a losing business. Lu Chongqing naturally provided guidance in talisman crafting as well, but the effectiveness of such teachings was limited, it still depended on the individual. This made Lu Chongqing realize that teaching the children talisman making and puppetry would be somewhat difficult. You could invest heavily in the early stages, but without natural talent in these areas, it was hard to cultivate skills. As Lu Chongqing watched his daughter quietly drinking milk, he suddenly sensed something. He took out a talisman from his storage bag. Faint spiritual light flowed across the surface of the talisman. Shiyu has arrived at the Red Leaf Valley Market, he noted. This was a sensing talisman. Whenever a corresponding communication talisman was activated, the sensing talisman would perceive it. However, this was only a first-grade sensing talisman, its range of sensing was limited. Therefore, Lu Chongqing immediately knew that Wuxia had come to the Red Leaf Valley Market. Right away, He went to the talisman room, informed Lu Miaoge, who was making talismans, that he needed to step out, then carried his daughter toward the entrance of the Red Leaf Valley Market. A quarter of an hour later, Lu Chongqing arrived at the market exit. He immediately saw Xiao Xia not far away, clad in a white dress, her tall and graceful figure exuding a cold and lofty air. Chapter 297, Yun Wanshang, How Could It Be Him? Shi Yu. Reading Omicron N Novel Cool. Omicron M, Lu Chongqing stepped forward, calling out to Xiao Xia. When they had parted last, Xiao Xia had suggested they address each other as fellow Taoists, creating a sense of estrangement. Therefore, it was only natural that their form of address had changed. Chongqing. Upon seeing Lu Chongqing, Xiao Xia, with her cold, proud features, immediately revealed a gentle look in her calm and indifferent beautiful eyes, and the corners of her mouth also curled up. Is this also your daughter? Xiao Xia, seeing the baby bottle in the arms of Lu Chongqing who was holding Lu Qingzhu, asked. She knew that Lu Chongqing had many wives and children. But she hadn't expected that Lu Chongqing would come to the marketplace while also holding a child. It left her really not knowing what to say. She could only say that Lu Chongqing truly liked children. Yes, this is my daughter Lu Qingzhu. Little Zhuer, this is your auntie Shi Yu. Lu Chongqing introduced them to each other with a candid expression. He, auntie. The little girl, clutching her baby bottle, paused, then spoke in a babyish voice. In Qingzhu Mountain, with so many lady mothers, she had learned to call out a bit. But her pronunciation was still not clear. Ah, what a cutie. Xiao Xia looked at the little girl drinking her milk and showed a faint smile on her face. One reason was that the child was indeed adorable. The other was love for the house and its crow. Straight away, the two of them walked into the Red Leaf Valley Marketplace, laughing and talking. However, as the two chatted, is it him? A hidden figure, camouflaged in the void, upon seeing Lu Chongqing, revealed expressions of shock, astonishment, embarrassment, anger, and disbelief in her dreamlike beautiful eyes. It was like when Duan Yu learned that the person he loved, unexpectedly, was his own half-sister from the same father but different mothers. But in the end, he was not the child of his biological father, instead born from his mother's secret affair. She used destined lover in her emotional tribulation. How could it be him? Yun Wanshang stood quietly in mid-air, wearing a colorful dress, her expression incredibly shocked, her feelings indescribably complex. Her heart felt as if a bottle of mixed emotions had been overturned. After Xiao Xia had left, she had been somewhat worried about her. She also wanted to see for herself the person her pupil had chosen for her emotional tribulation. After all, this tribulation could significantly influence her disciple's future. As a teacher, she naturally had to take a good care of her. Therefore, she had followed Xiao Xia all the way here, ready to keep an eye on things. But she had never imagined that her pupil's lover would turn out to be the Qi refinement cultivator with whom she had had a one-night stand. This left her brain in chaos, overwhelmed with shock, astonishment, embarrassment, anger, and even murderous thoughts, stunned to the core. A moment later, truly, fate makes fools of us all. Yun Wanshang watched the receding figures, sighed helplessly and bitterly, a wry smile on her face. Under the surge of emotions just now, she had even thought of slaying Lu Chongqing with a single sword stroke. But recalling the past incident, she couldn't really blame Lu Chongqing. The cause lay with her. Moreover, she could not possibly do such a thing. Lu Chongqing was merely together with Xiao Xia. What reason did she have to kill him for that? Furthermore, judging by Xiao Xia's demeanor and attitude towards Lu Chongqing, it was clear that she had developed feelings. Love is born unknowingly. Once the emotional tribulation was triggered, the rest was up to Xiao Xia herself to overcome. If she, in a fit of rage, were to kill Lu Chongqing, it would be like severing her own pupil's future. Sigh. Yun Wanshang sighed deeply once again. Her emotions were complicated beyond words. She had thought that if Lu Changxing were promising enough to reach the Foundation establishment within 20 to 30 years, she might give him a chance to bring him to the Qingyun sect for cultivation. Forming a true elixir would naturally be difficult, hopeless even. But with her help and nurture, forming a false core could be feasible. In such a case, the man would be worthy of being her partner. Later, by leveraging the spirit-nurturing energy she left within Lu Changxing, a dual cultivation between them was not outside the realm of advancement. But now, upon seeing that Lu Changxing had become Xiao Xia's destined lover in her emotional tribulation, she could only abandon such thoughts and plans. Even if Xiao Xia were to cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique and forget this romance after passing her emotional tribulation, as a teacher, she could no longer entertain such notions. Otherwise, what would be the propriety in sharing a husband between master and pupil? She, Yun Wanshang, being a nascent soul immortal, must she not care for her own dignity? But looking at him just now, with his child, has he given up on cultivation? Yun Wanshang thought of how Lu Changxing had been holding a child and her eyebrows slightly furrowed. If cultivators could preserve their essential purity, not breaking their primordial yin and yang, it would provide some aid in their early cultivation. This is why most young cultivators would not consider marriage. He is but an 8th grade spiritual root. Even if he had an opportunity back then and had a breakthrough in cultivation level with me, the possibility for him to reach Foundation establishment is extremely slim. Moreover, Shiyu visited Qingzhou Mountain some time ago, and I recall that Qingzhou Mountain is a Foundation establishment cultivator family. If this child belongs to that family, with mediocre talent, indeed he can only marry and live out a peaceful life. Yun Wanshang muttered to herself. Seeing that Lu Changxing already had a wife and child, she didn't know why, but she felt a pang of disappointment, displeasure. Already married with children yet still so close with Shiyu. Yun Wanshang's face showed a hint of coldness again. No, that's not right. Shiyu said that she managed to escape from robber cultivators thanks to him. Moreover, Shiyu asked me to refine the Golden Crow elixir for his Foundation establishment preparations, which means, his cultivation level has already reached Qi refinement perfection. The next moment, Yun Wanshang suddenly looked up, realizing another incongruity. Since Lu Changxing had her gift of the androgynous jade. Chapter 298, Yun Wanshang, how could it be him? So just now, she hadn't paid attention to Lu Changxing's cultivation level. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lise also, because various emotions pervaded her heart and assailed her mind, she forgot about it for the time being. Now that she thought of it, a few traces of surprise and doubt appeared in her heart. Watching the almost departing pair, she quickly followed. Then, she looked toward Lu Changxing, her eyes shining brightly, as if starry rivers flowed within them, suffused with the light of dawn. 9th level energy refinement. Moreover, the spiritual power aura throughout his body is majestic, faintly exuding a sharp and overbearing presence. The vitality of his physical body is also extremely vigorous, like a demon beast. Yun Wanshang used a technique and immediately discerned Lu Changxing's cultivation level. She couldn't help but feel a wave of shock. It's only been 8 years, right? An 8th grade spiritual root, breaking through from the peak of the 6th level energy refinement to the 9th level energy refinement in 8 years. This speed is barely acceptable, but his entire cultivation, not only is his spiritual power robust, but it also clearly shows signs of magical dual cultivation. Yun Wanshang's eyes were full of surprise and disbelief. If this situation were applied to the talented disciples of Qingyun sect, it would be completely normal. But on Lu Changxing, it seemed somewhat inconceivable. Huff! Yun Wanshang watched Lu Changxing, making sure she wasn't mistaken, before exhaling deeply. As a nascent soul immortal, she typically remained unmoved even if Mount Tai were crumbling before her. Even when she learned about Xiao Xia's matters, her eyebrows only slightly furrowed, her expression turning cold. But today, having seen Lu Changxing, her expression changed dramatically twice in a short period, stirring thousands of waves in her heart. While Yun Wanshang was observing Lu Changsheng's condition, Lu Changxing also had a prickling feeling as if ants were crawling on his back. Suddenly, he turned his head, then scanned his surroundings. But there were only a few pedestrians scattered around. Nothing was amiss. However, Lu Changxing trusted his intuition. He knew that this faint feeling, akin to thorns pricking at his back, must be due to someone observing him. Otherwise, without reason, he would not have this sensation. Could it be the patriarch of the Yu family? Because of the previous incident involving the third young master of the Yu family, Lu Changxing couldn't help but suspect the Yu family. He remembered that the patriarch of the Yu family was currently stationed within the marketplace. But he felt that was unlikely. Why would the other party observe him for no reason? Moreover, he had been in the Red Leaf Valley market for quite some time. If the patriarch really wanted to observe him, he would have done so already, not wait until now. He then looked at Xiao Xia, wondering if someone had set their sights on Xiao Xia again. Changxing, what's wrong? Xiao Xia also noticed that Lu Changxing seemed out of sorts and inquired. I just had a faint feeling that someone is secretly observing me. Shiyu, did you encounter anything on the way here? Lu Changxing stopped looking around, maintained his composure, and spoke through a voice transmission. Changxing, are you saying someone is following me? I haven't noticed anything unusual on my way here. Upon hearing this, Xiao Xia quickly grasped the meaning behind Lu Changsheng's words and became alert, scanning her surroundings. Is that so? Lu Changxing took a deep breath. He knew that Xiao Xia practiced the supreme forgetful love technique. In terms of spiritual sense, she was even more sensitive than himself. Since Xiao Xia hadn't noticed anything unusual, it suggested that the person was unrelated to Xiao Xia, or perhaps the observer's cultivation level was so profound that Xiao Xia didn't perceive it at all during her journey. Changxing, let's meet up later. At that moment, Xiao Xia paused as if she'd come to a realization, pursed her lips, and spoke. She then headed towards the direction of the market's exit. Lu Changxing saw Xiao Xia suddenly leave and was uncertain of her meaning, but quickly guessed that Xiao Xia must have realized something. All right, I will also take the child back. Lu Changxing nodded in acknowledgement and spoke aloud. He prepared to send his daughter home first to have Lu Miaoge look after her, for it would be inconvenient to handle any unexpected events while holding the child. Quite sharp and vigilant. It seems Shiyu has also guessed it's me. Hidden at the side of the street, Yun Wanshang, with her figure concealed, watched the two separate, her expression returning to calm. She knew her actions had made Lu Changxing wary, causing Xiao Xia to guess that the person watching them covertly was herself. Shiyu, it's your master. To avoid causing her disciple any fear, Yun Wanshang didn't hide it and directly transmitted her voice to her disciple. Master, why have you come? Xiao Xia, hearing her master's voice, also let out a sigh of relief and spoke softly, almost as if talking to herself. But Yun Wanshang could clearly hear her voice. She spoke frankly, your earlier adventures led you into danger, and the matter of the trial by love is of great importance. I'm concerned about you, hence I came to have a look. Thank you, master. Xiao Xia nodded gently, understanding her master's deep concern. Find a place, your master has questions for you. Yun Wanshang continued to communicate telepathically. Yes, master. Immediately, Xiao Xia noticed an inn nearby, and promptly went in to secure a room. In such a way, Yun Wanshang followed Xiao Xia into the room under the cover of invisibility and then revealed herself. Master. Upon seeing Yun Wanshang, Xiao Xia promptly bowed in a greeting. The man just now, he's the one related to your trial by love, isn't he? Yun Wanshang asked with a steady tone. Yes, master. Xiao Xie nodded. Tell your master about the situation between you and him in detail. Yun Wanshang requested. Chapter 299, The Different Levels of Foundation Establishment, from 3 to 6 to 9. _1 in the Room of Ancient Demeanor, reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Li Xiao Xie recounted to Yun Wanshang the general situation between herself and Lu Chongqing. Yun Wanshang listened quietly. During the conversation, she inquired about the matter of Lu Chongqing already having children. Xiao Xie then expressed that this was also a reason she chose Lu Chongqing as the target for her emotional tribulation. Because the supreme forgetful love technique could potentially harm both herself and others in the end. Lu Chongqing was very affectionate, with many wives and children. Under such circumstances, even if she were to leave in the future, she wouldn't cause Lu Chongqing too much sorrow and suffering. Hearing this, Yun Wanshang's fists involuntarily clenched tight. It wasn't because she was angry at Xiao Xie's thoughts. Previously when Xiao Xie asked her to refine the Golden Crow elixir, she had already guessed Xiao Xie's intention. She was thinking of using it to settle their karmic debts, in order to practice the supreme forgetful love technique. Her anger was due to the fact that upon hearing Lu Chongqing had many wives and children, she felt particularly uncomfortable. Recalling how after a night of passion with Lu Chongqing, he looked at her with a pitiful and aggrieved expression. At that time, she thought Lu Chongqing was an innocent and pure young man. But now, hearing Xiao Xie's words and learning that the man had already had a bevy of wives, and was the father of dozens of children, she felt an extreme sense of frustration and dissatisfaction. She almost wished she could strike Lu Chongqing with her sword right now. Rest assured, master, I have already spoken to Chongqing about this, and will explain everything to him when the time comes, Xiao Xie said, pressing her lips together as she looked at her master, thinking that Yun Wanshang was angry with her. Sigh. Yun Wanshang, seeing her disciple like this, wondered whether Xiao Xie could truly overcome her emotional tribulation. She sighed deeply, not wanting to question or dwell on the matter further. Because the matter of an emotional tribulation could only be dealt with by Xiao Xie herself. There was only so much she could help with. You just have to be clear about it in your own heart. If there's anything, you can send a message to your teacher, Yun Wanshang said with a faint sigh. At this point, there wasn't much else she could say. She just felt a profound sense of the whims of fate, which had disrupted her own state of mind. Thank you, master. Xiao Xie's eyes revealed softness as she respectfully bowed in salute. Yun Wanshang waved her hand, indicating for her to leave. Xiao Xie bowed again and left the room of the inn. Sigh, fate really toys with us, muttered Yun Wanshang to herself after Xiao Xie had gone, the room now left with only her. She sighed deeply again. Her heart was a mixture of emotions and she couldn't completely settle down. However, this Lu Chongqing, a mere farmer's son, was rejected in the Qingyun sect's entrance examination, became a son-in-law in a foundation establishment family, and within just over 10 years, he has grown to this extent. It seems he too has had great fortune and a formidable destiny, Yun Wanshang mused, her gaze casting towards the direction of the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop, her expression calm. She had been surprised by Lu Chongqing's level of cultivation when she saw it. She had regarded Lu Chongqing as nothing more than a cultivator with an 8th grade spiritual root. Now, having understood more about Lu Chongqing through Xiao Xie, she adapted her thinking, feeling it made sense. After all, as a nascent soul immortal, her vision was naturally higher than that of ordinary people. Lu Chongqing's performance was indeed astonishing, but in the eyes of a nascent soul immortal like her, it was just so. After all, Yun Wanshang herself, on her own cultivation journey, had achieved core formation before the age of 100, not solely because of her exceptional talent, but also due to having opportunities, a great chance and destiny. To think that in the mysterious workings of fate, I chose him, must have been due to some amount of destiny, but alas, fate makes fools of us all, Yun Wanshang sighed softly. For some unknown reason, she felt a hollow restlessness within her heart. She then turned into a rainbow light and disappeared from the inn. Lu Chongqing sent his daughter back to the spiritual talisman shop, leaving her in Lu Maiage's care, and then he returned to the crossroads. Soon after, he saw Xiao Xie coming out of an inn. Chongqing, Xiao Xie, upon seeing Lu Chongqing, quickly approached him. Then she spoke up to explain, "The one who was watching you just now was my master. She was worried about me, so she also came down the mountain." Xiao Xie said. "Your master?" Lu Chongqing was startled when he heard this. He knew that Xiao Xie's master was a nascent soul immortal from the Qingyun sect. He hadn't expected that this nascent soul immortal would actually accompany Xiao Xie down the mountain. And that she had been secretly observing him. This sent a shiver down his spine. After all, if a nascent soul immortal took a dislike to him, he would have no hope of escape. "Did your master leave any instructions?" Lu Chongqing cautiously asked. He was unsure what this nascent soul immortal's attitude toward him might be. After all, the current situation between him and Xiao Xie might be displeasing to a master. "Don't worry, my master was just concerned about me and came to see for herself. Now that she's seen me, she should be leaving," said Xiao Xie, her lips curving slightly as she watched Lu Chongqing react. "I regret that I didn't get to meet the immortal," Lu Chongqing said, feeling relieved upon hearing that. He roughly understood that Xiao Xie's master was aware that Xiao Xie was using him to cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique. Therefore, she probably didn't mind the nature of his relationship with Xiao Xie. "If that nascent soul immortal knew that I wanted her disciple to bear a child for me, I am afraid she would strike me down with a single sword," thought Lu Chongqing inwardly. "Usually, my master doesn't like meeting people, but if there's a chance in the future, I will introduce you," said Xiao Xie. "I was just speaking off the cuff," Lu Chongqing waved his hand and said. Although he was curious about Xiao Xie's master, the nascent soul immortal of Qingyun sect, he had no real desire to meet her. After all, facing a great cultivator with such an immense gap in strength could truly be frightening. Chapter 300, Foundation Establishment's 369 Ranks. He still clearly remembered the first time he had met the Lu family ancestor. His heart was in a flutter. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lease, Chongqing, is there a second-order cave mansion available for rent in the marketplace? Xiao Xie asked Lu Chongqing. Second-order cave mansion, there should be. Lu Chongqing knew that Xiao Xie was planning to temporarily reside here. He had a second-order cave mansion before, but since he didn't live here much, and when he did, it was with Lu Miaoge, so he rented the mansion to Gao He. However, if Xiao Xie needed one, he could still rent a mansion from the Lu family currently. Immediately, Lu Chongqing took Xiao Xie to the Lu family compound in Red Leaf Valley to find the Great Elder. Nowadays, the Great Elder of the Lu family presided over the Red Leaf Valley market. "Great Elder, my good friend here would like to temporarily settle in the Red Leaf Valley marketplace. I wonder if our family still has a spare second-order cave mansion for rent." Upon meeting the Great Elder, Lu Chongqing greeted him with a clasped fist and bow. "You've come at the right time, there happens to be one second-order cave mansion left," the Great Elder said with a chuckle. Then, he glanced at the aloof Xiao Xie standing by his side. He couldn't help thinking to himself, wondering where Lu Chongqing had acquainted such a girl. Not only was she stunningly beautiful, but her demeanor was also unapproachable. Her cultivation level made even him, the Great Elder of the Lu family, unable to see through her, feeling it enigmatic. He wondered if she could be another Foundation Establishment Great Cultivator. "Then it'll trouble the Great Elder," Lu Chongqing said, expressing his intention to rent immediately. Considering Xiao Xie probably wouldn't stay long, Lu Chongqing decided to rent the mansion for 1 year. Normally, such mansions were rented out for at least 3 to 5 years at a time. But after all, Lu Chongqing was considered one of their own. So, they rented it out for just 1 year. And it was for the lowest rental fee. After renting the cave mansion, Lu Chongqing bid farewell to the great elder. With the token in hand, he led Xiao Xie to the cave mansion area in the Red Leaf Valley Market. This mansion was just like the one Lu Chongqing had rented to Gao He. Merely 100 square meters, it was spacious and neat. The mansion was endowed with formations and restrictions, making it very quiet. Now, with a single man and a single woman sharing the same room, Lu Chongqing didn't pretend to be a paragon of virtue. Shiyu, after not seeing each other for so long, let me see if your cultivation has fallen behind. Looking at the woman in front of him, dressed in white, her face cold and stunningly beautiful, reminiscent of the Guanghan fairy, Lu Chongqing pulled her into his embrace. Chongqing, after several months, the familiar scent that rushed over caught Xiao Xie off guard, making her whimper and her fair, snowy cheeks flushing with a soft rosy tint. Looks like your cultivation has indeed been neglected. Lu Chongqing teased. Xiao Xie's long lashes trembled slightly, somewhat indignant, and she began to fight back. As they went back and forth, Xiao Xie gradually regained her state, matching Lu Chongqing's moves. After a long while, Chongqing, I have a gift for you, Xiao Xie said, sitting in Lu Chongqing's arms, slightly out of breath. Her clear, stunning face, like melting ice and snow, flowers beneath heaps of snow, was breathtakingly beautiful. A gift? Lu Chongqing held Xiao Xie in his arms, raising an eyebrow. He immediately guessed that she was referring to what she had said before about helping him with his foundation establishment. However, he didn't hold much expectation for this gift, as he was rather distracted by the beauty before him. After all, a gentleman keeps his tools of the trade to himself and takes action only at the appropriate time. Chongqing, this is the Golden Crow Elixir. It will aid your cultivation, allowing you to quickly reach qi refinement perfection. Moreover, contained within the Golden Crow Elixir is a thread of Great Sun Essence, which not only can compensate for your losses in male-female affairs but will also assist you with your foundation establishment. Xiao Xie took out a porcelain bottle from her storage bag. She opened the bottle. Instantly, a fiery medicinal fragrance filled the air, revealing to Lu Chongqing around, golden elixir medicine, with what appeared to be strands of flickering flames on it. Shiyu, isn't this elixir a bit precious? Lu Chongqing had never heard of the Golden Crow Elixir, but from the appearance of the elixir and Xiao Xie's description of its effects, he knew it was extraordinary. After all, anything related to foundation establishment was far from cheap. You've saved my life before and helped with my cultivation. What is one elixir in comparison? When Xiao Xie mentioned helping her with cultivation, her face turned slightly red. Back in Rui County City when Lu Chongqing talked about helping with her cultivation, it was somewhat justifiable, but now, with the two of them in such a situation, talking about cultivation felt like she was deceiving herself. If you're going to be like that, it would seem too formal. Since that's the case, I'll accept it. Lu Chongqing said, not shying away, knowing that a woman like Xiao Xie was actually very independent and didn't want to owe him too much. Before she returned to Qingyun's sect, aside from resolving the assassination incident, she had already thought of how to repay him. If you're not occupied with anything, just consume the Golden Crow Elixir now. It'll protect you while you assimilate it, Xiao Xie continued. Okay, Lu Chongqing responded, nodding, his expression turning serious. He set down the warm, fragrant soft jade from his arms and swallowed the Golden Crow Elixir. As soon as the elixir went down, Lu Chongqing instantly felt a massive and pure force spreading throughout his body, warm and very comfortable, but before he could enjoy it, boom! It was as if a great sun had exploded in his lower abdomen, turning into rolling flames, engulfing his whole body, burning his limbs and bones. Hot, hot, hot. Lu Chongqing felt blazing hot, as if he was on fire. On his flesh and muscles, golden flames started to ignite. Chongqing, circulate your energy, Xiao Xie's voice rang out. Then, her lips, soft as clouds, landed on Lu Chongqing's, and at the moment he felt their warm softness, a profound and icy energy, through her red lips, slowly flowed into him. Yin and Yang, merged as one. Chapter 301, The 369 Ranks of Foundation Establishment. Under the washing of this cool spiritual power, the violent and scorching medicinal force within Lu Changxing gradually smoothed out. Reading Omicron N novel Cool. Omicron M, Least it also made the intense pain from his burning flesh and blood disappear by a large extent. At this moment, Lu Changxing wasn't distracted by the fairy's fragrant lips. Instead, he began to perform the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture. He swiftly refined the huge and pure medicinal strength of the Golden Crow elixir. He could see the scorching medicinal force of the Golden Crow elixir, under the influence of Xiao Xia's cool spiritual energy, slowly transform into a firebird resembling a golden crow, leisurely wandering through his limbs and meridians. During this process, Lu Changxing not only felt his cultivation level crazily increase. His flesh and blood, meridians, and inner organs were also being washed and condensed. If it hadn't been for his cultivation of the 100 refinements treasure body art, with his flesh having withstood thousands of trials, the effect of this force on his physical body would have been even more remarkable. Just like that, time ticked away bit by bit. Half a month passed. Lu Changxing opened his eyes. His eyes were bright and spirited, his body felt unprecedentedly comfortable. He exhaled a breath of stale air. Looking inward at his chi ocean core. The 7-colored Dan Lake surged like an ocean, its aura robust. At this moment, his cultivation had reached the pinnacle of chi refinement. With just a few more months of polishing his spiritual power, ensuring it was well-rounded to his satisfaction, he could then prepare for the foundation establishment. Hiss, this speed. Lu Changxing also found the speed of his increase in cultivation level to be shocking. After all, according to his own forecast, even with the assistance of elixir medicines, reaching chi refinement perfection would still take 3 to 5 years. But now, after just a short while, his spiritual power had already achieved chi refinement perfection. This made him realize even more the extraordinariness of that Golden Crow elixir. Not just the Golden Crow elixir, but also the spiritual energy that Xiao Xia had transferred into his body. Why is this thing still here? Lu Changxing noticed a small golden crow slowly moving within his 7-colored Dan Lake. It was the fiery bird that had roamed through his meridians during the refinement of the Golden Crow elixir. Changxing, you're awake. Xiao Xia, looking at Lu Changxing waking up, revealed a faint, gentle smile. Perhaps due to transferring too much spiritual energy to Lu Changxing, she looked slightly pale. Shiyu, you've worked hard. Lu Changxing, seeing Xiao Xia looking like this, knew it was due to helping him refine the elixir. He held her hand, expressing his gratitude. He then inquired, Shiyu, why is there a small golden crow roaming about in my Dan Lake? That is the most precious great sun essence of the Golden Crow elixir. When you break through to foundation establishment, this strand of great sun essence will solidify your base, ensuring you can gather an unblemished Tao foundation, and you might even have the chance to coalesce a great sun Tao foundation. However, the foundation of your spiritual power is several times more robust than I expected. Even without this strand of great sun essence, you'd be able to form a perfect foundation base on your own. Xiao Xia explained aloud. A perfect foundation base, a great Sun Dao foundation. Shiyu, does foundation establishment also have various levels? Lu Changxing, upon hearing this, was somewhat surprised. He knew that once one's spiritual power was well-rounded and satisfactory after achieving chi refinement perfection, one could prepare for foundation establishment. Break through the 3 barriers of foundation establishment, transform the Dan Lake into a true sea, raise a Tao platform, shed the mortal body, and build a Tao foundation, becoming a foundation establishment great cultivator. He cultivated in the 7 luminaries great freedom sword scripture, and after breaking through foundation establishment, a Tao platform constructed by the 7 luminaries' spiritual power would be raised in the Dan Lake. This Tao platform was also known as the 7 luminaries Tao platform. But now, from Xiao Xia's words, it seemed that there were indeed varying levels of Tao foundations. You don't know, Chongqing. Xiao Xia, on hearing this, looked somewhat surprised. But then she remembered the Lu family Lu Chongqing belonged to was only a foundation establishment family. And since Lu Chongqing had always been humble about his cultivation level, it was normal for him to not have come across this information. She proceeded to explain to Lu Chongqing, yes, when you strike for foundation establishment, after you break through the 3 barriers, a Tao platform rises from the Dan Lake. The platform radiates bright light, circulates throughout the body, sheds the mortal form. This is foundation establishment. But depending on the different cultivation techniques, one's own foundation, the resulting Tao platform also has levels of superiority and inferiority. If one is old, with declining vitality and blood, a baseless foundation, or if the divine sense is weak, even if they pass the 3 foundation establishment barriers and succeed, the raised Tao platform will have flaws and cracks. Such a foundation establishment is called a flawed Tao foundation, or even a shattered Tao foundation. If the platform is riddled with too many flaws and cracks, it not only affects the speed and power of cultivation but also makes it much more difficult to break through bottlenecks and to form a core later on. A Tao platform that rises flawless and perfect is called an unblemished Tao foundation, which offers a prospect of forming a core in the future. Above the unblemished Tao foundation lies the perfect foundation base. It is formed on the basis of being flawless and perfect by cultivating a technique that is in harmony with oneself, or with the help of foundation establishment spiritual objects or treasures that match oneself, allowing the individual Tao platform to ascend to greater heights. I am endowed with the moonlight spirit body and cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique, so if I succeed in foundation establishment, I can forge a perfect Moon Tao foundation. And the Great Sun Tao Foundation also belongs to a perfect foundation establishment. Xiao Xia uttered these words. A flawed Tao foundation, an unblemished Tao foundation, a perfect foundation base. Lu Chongqing nodded upon hearing this. It was only now that he learned about the various levels of foundation establishment. But he wasn't surprised by this. After all, he hadn't heard the detailed classifications of foundation establishment, but he knew there were divisions such as true core and false core in forming a core. Under such circumstances, differing levels of the Tao platform during foundation establishment was quite normal. I cultivate the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture, and when I raise the Tao platform from the Dan Lake, it will be a 7 luminaries Tao platform. According to Shi Yu's description, it should be considered a perfect foundation base, right? Lu Chongqing thought to himself. Chapter 302, Purple Mansion Nurturing Divine Technique, Birth of Divine Sense. _1, is my Tao foundation a perfect foundation establishment? Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lu Chongqing asked aloud. He felt that his 7 luminaries Tao foundation was most likely a perfect foundation. But he still asked for confirmation. After all, when it comes to foundation establishment, carelessness is not an option. Moreover, Xiao Xia had told him all her personal secrets like the supreme forgetful love technique and the moonlight spirit body. Revealing a bit of his cultivation technique information was nothing in comparison. 7 luminaries sword scripture, 7 luminaries Tao foundation. Xiao Xia naturally had not heard of this cultivation technique. But from the words 7 luminaries Tao foundation, she knew it was at least a top-notch peripheral sect-level cultivation technique. Because only techniques of this level could condense a Tao foundation that matched the technique itself. After pondering for a moment, she said, I'm not certain about this. But before, I noticed that your foundation is robust, Chongqing. If you succeed in foundation establishment, your Tao platform will undoubtedly be flawless. If this technique is compatible with you and you have cultivated it without issue, then it is very likely a perfect Tao foundation. Xiao Xie said somewhat uncertainly. After all, she was just an energy refining cultivator. She only knew so much about foundation establishment because Yun Wanxiang was about to do it and had imparted much knowledge and experience to her. She had also read through a lot of information on the topic and was more knowledgeable. But she couldn't draw many conclusions from Lu Changsheng's brief description. If I was originally able to create a perfect foundation establishment, would this thread of great sun essence have any impact? Lu Changsheng continued to ask. So far, he had not felt any drawbacks from the thread of great sun essence. But he didn't know if it would have any impact. Changsheng, you can be at ease about this. Great sun essence is a rare treasure of heaven and earth. It will only make your foundation more robust, and it's beneficial for your foundation establishment. It might even take your 7 luminaries Tao foundation to a higher level. Xiao Xie declared at once. She then explained to Lu Changsheng many details about foundation establishment, sharing with him knowledge and her experience. For instance, what to pay attention to when striking at foundation establishment, passing through the 3 barriers. How to maximize the success rate of foundation establishment. During foundation establishment, how to choose foundation establishment spirit objects. How to select the foundation establishment spirit objects most compatible with oneself. In addition to the perfect foundation under the compatibility of one's cultivation technique, there are also the Great Sun Tao Foundation, Taiyin Tao Foundation, Gung Metal Tao Foundation, 5 Elements Tao Foundation, 3 Flowers Gathered Atop Tao Foundation, 5 Qi Towards Yuan Tao Foundation. Learning all this information about foundation establishment made Lu Changsheng widen his eyes. He couldn't help feeling amazed that even something as simple as foundation establishment had so many intricacies involved. No wonder countless loose cultivators would join a force in exchange for just a bit of insight into foundation establishment, essentially risking their lives for it. Because this knowledge is indeed important. It's greatly helpful for an ordinary cultivator's foundation establishment. And ordinary loose cultivators simply couldn't access this kind of information and had no choice but to commit themselves to a power. If I demonstrated the strength of a cultivator at the peak of Qi refinement, the Lu family would also give me such insights into foundation establishment. But the understanding and insights of foundation establishment from the Lu family are definitely not as profound as Xiao Xie's, Lu Changsheng reflected inwardly. He realized once again at this moment the benefits of joining a major force. But the fact that Xiao Xie knew so much was also because behind her stood Qingyun sect, one of the 4 great immortal sects of Jiang country, and she had a nascent soul mentor. Otherwise, an ordinary disciple from an immortal sect wouldn't necessarily know so much. Shiyu, these are the foundation establishment spirit objects I have prepared for myself. Which do you think are suitable for me? At this time, Lu Changsheng took out 5 foundation establishment spirit objects from his storage bag. Since he was going to aim for perfect foundation establishment, he naturally wanted to lay the most solid groundwork possible. Although Xiao Xie had told him a lot just now, he still wasn't clear on how to choose the right spirit objects for foundation establishment. This is Blood Yang Fruit, Blood Lingji, Profound Yin True Water, Heavenly Heart Lotus, Jade Soul Flower. Xiao Xie looked at the 5 foundation establishment spirit objects that Lu Changsheng had taken out all at once and felt somewhat stunned. Although she was a disciple of a nascent soul immortal, she was not oblivious to the harshness of cultivation. She knew the difficulties of cultivation, and that foundation establishment spirit objects were very precious. An ordinary cultivator would be lucky to find a single one when establishing their foundation. But now, Lu Changsheng had actually produced 5 at once. And she could tell that Lu Changsheng's physical body, blood essence, and mana were incredibly robust. He could completely do without the assistance of foundation establishment spirit objects. At most, he would need one to assist with the divine sense during foundation establishment. Changsheng, with your robust body, vigorous blood essence, and powerful spiritual energy, you have no need for foundation establishment spirit objects to assist you. Using foundation establishment spirit objects might actually affect your blood essence and the purity of your magic aura. For the divine sense barrier, you could use the heavenly heart lotus as an aid. Moreover, I have a secret technique that can assist you during your foundation establishment, so you don't need to rely on these spirit objects. However, this jade soul flower has a warming effect on the mental spirit, so you can use it now to nurture your mental spirit, which might enable you to directly produce divine sense. Xiao Xie spoke, saying this. Although it said one's mental spirit evolves and divine sense is born only upon foundation establishment, this doesn't mean it's impossible to develop divine sense during the Qi refinement realm. Secret technique. What secret technique? Lu Changsheng's eyebrows rose upon hearing this. He hadn't expected that, aside from the Golden Crow elixir, Xiao Xie also had a secret technique to assist his foundation establishment. This was akin to having his meal spoon-fed to him. It was as if she was really worried that his foundation establishment would fail or be suboptimal. But the more Xiao Xie did this, the more Lu Changsheng felt she did not want to be indebted to him. She seemed intent on paying back her debt for the cultivation assistance and life-saving grace through these means. You'll know when the time comes, Xiao Xie pursed her lips and didn't reveal the technique. After all, she was aware that the method wasn't really a secret technique. Lu Changsheng, hearing this, did not fixate on the secret technique any further. Chapter 303, Purple Mansion Nurturing Divine Technique, Birth of Divine Sense. Reading Omicron N Novel Cool. Omicron M, Lise he asked how to use the Jade Soul Flower. If the Jade Soul Flower is refined into a spirit-nourishing elixir, the effect would naturally be the best. However, to refine the spirit-nourishing elixir, one also needs to seek other auxiliary materials and request an alchemist to make it. Changsheng, you can simply swallow it directly once it's done. Xiao Xie opened her mouth and spoke. After she finished speaking, she seemed to think of something and asked, Changsheng, have you cultivated any spiritual training techniques? No, Lu Changsheng shook his head. His source for cultivation techniques was all down to drawing lots. But so far, he hadn't drawn any techniques for cultivating mental strength. However, within the Red Phoenix True Scripture, there was a secret technique for divine sense attack. But he was incapable of cultivating it. I possess a Purple Mansion nourishing spirit technique that can train the spirit and warm nourish the divine sense, which would aid you in refining the Jade Soul Flower, Xiao Xie said aloud. Purple Mansion nourishing spirit technique. Upon hearing this, Lu Changsheng immediately asked, can this technique be taught to others? It was said that techniques should not be lightly transmitted. Originally, when Lu Yuanzhong gave him the greenwood art, he made him promise not to transmit it to others. Xiao Xie's Purple Mansion nourishing spirit technique was most likely also learned within Qingyun sect. Within Qingyun sect, there surely would be strict rules against disciples transmitting techniques to outsiders. This technique was bestowed upon me by my master, so passing it on doesn't count as violating the sect rules, Xiao Xie explained. If you teach me, your master won't blame you, will he? Lu Changsheng continued to inquire. Though he yearned for a technique to cultivate his spirit, he did not want to cause trouble for Xiao Xie because of a technique. In the Seven Luminaries Great Freedom Sword Scripture, on the second level, after condensing the Seven Luminary Star Lamp, there was an effect that helped practitioners to see their true nature, which could be considered as a half-mental cultivation method. My master did not say it couldn't be transmitted, she won't blame me, Xiao Xie spoke softly. Logically, before transmitting a technique, one should inform their master. But under the current circumstances, she obviously couldn't go back just to report this. She also believed that her master wouldn't blame her. Thank you, Shiyu. When Lu Changsheng heard this, he stopped refusing. Shortly after, Xiao Xie began teaching him the chant of the Purple Mansion nourishing spirit technique and passed on the method of cultivation to Lu Changsheng. Under Xiao Xie's guidance, it took Lu Changsheng 3 days to grasp the basics of the Purple Mansion nourishing spirit technique. The entire person sat in meditation, his mind as quiet and dark as space. Transporting the blood and spiritual power throughout his body, it transformed into purple mist, pervading his body, lighting up the dark world. Amidst the darkness, a purple palatial divine mansion gradually emerged. Huff! Watching Lu Chongqing begin to cultivate the purple mansion nourishing spirit technique, Xiao Xia also breathed a sigh of relief. She thought to herself that Lu Chongqing had finally mastered it. Originally, under Yun Wanshang's teaching, she had grasped the purple mansion nourishing spirit technique in a single day. But seeing Lu Chongqing take 3 days to master it, she couldn't help but doubt herself. Was there some deficiency in her teaching? Why did it take Lu Chongqing so long to understand and comprehend this technique? She never doubted Lu Changsheng's aptitude. After all, the techniques that Lu Chongqing was currently cultivating were at least top tier at the peripheral sect level. Being able to master such techniques indicated that his comprehension and innate talent were definitely not poor, and could be considered extraordinary. It must be that I didn't explain the details clearly enough. Not like every word my master uttered was profound and enlightening. Xiao Xia thought to herself. Lu Chongqing, of course, did not know Xiao Xia's thoughts. He was also unaware of his own innate comprehension and talent. After all, aside from a copy of the returning origin technique and some primary level spells, he hadn't spent much time or thought in this area. Techniques like the Immortal Beauty technique, the 100 Refinements Treasure Body Art, and the 7 Luminaries Great Freedom Sword Scripture were fed to him by the system. He didn't have to spend any effort of his own. As for his own aptitude, he had no concept of it. Once Lu Changsheng's cultivation was almost complete, Xiao Xia softly woke him and told him that the process of the purple mansion nourishing spirit technique was actually nourishing the spirit through the essence of qi and blood, and that cultivation should not be overdone. Once immersed in it, it might damage oneself. Huff! Lu Chongqing opened his eyes, feeling full of spirit. But his body's qi and blood felt somewhat depleted. He realized that training the spirit also consumed physical support. Chongqing, take some time to recover now, then swallow the jade soul flower, and see if you can manifest divine sense by refining the jade soul flower with the purple mansion nourishing spirit technique, Xiao Xia said to Lu Chongqing. In her opinion, with Lu Changsheng's extraordinary talent and being at the 9th level of energy refinement, there was hope he could manifest divine sense. All right, Lu Chongqing nodded. He took out an elixir from his storage bag and swallowed it to begin restoring himself and regulating his condition. Once his condition was fully restored, Lu Chongqing confirmed with Xiao Xia that there were no issues and then swallowed the jade soul flower, a foundation establishment spirit object that aided with impacting the barrier to foundation establishment, which could be extremely helpful. One foundation establishment spirit object was worth at least 2,000 to 3,000 spirit stones. But now, Lu Chongqing had directly consumed it. This jade soul flower was cool to the touch, with a bitter taste that carried a hint of sweetness, not unpleasant to eat. But as he swallowed it, Lu Chongqing immediately felt a light and agile energy coursing through his body. It was like a breeze blowing across his flesh. Chongqing, Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit Technique. Xiao Xia's voice rose, reminding Lu Chongqing. Lu Chongqing immediately began to circulate the Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit Technique. He warmed and nourished his spirit with the light and agile energy from the jade soul flower, along with the essence of qi and blood. The air around him was filled with purple mist, with auspicious clouds steaming. In the silent and dark world of his mind, an ancient and weighty purple palatial divine mansion appeared, starting to expel the darkness. Time trickled by. He was unaware of how long it had passed. Boom! Lu Chongqing saw the darkness in his mind nearly cleared by the purple mansion, his brain thundering. It made his brow begin to swell. It was as if an eye in his forehead was slowly opening. Chapter 304, Purple Mansion Nurturing Divine Technique, Birth of Divine Sense. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M. Least Lu Chongqing immediately discovered that the eye on his forehead could see the surroundings. Or rather, this vision was not seen through the eyes, but perceived through the third eye on the forehead, and then transferred to the brain. It was even clearer and more direct than what he saw with his own eyes. And he could watch in all directions at the same time, a full 360 degrees without any dead angles. At this moment, Lu Chongqing saw a figure sitting cross-legged, eyes slightly closed, face like jade, a handsome and spirited beautiful man. Is there really such a transcendently handsome man in the world? Lu Chongqing exclaimed, "Oh, it turns out to be myself, then it's fine." After glancing at his own handsome appearance twice, Lu Chongqing retracted his gaze and slowly opened his eyes. He also realized that this third eye must be what cultivators call divine sense. He hadn't expected a single jade soul flower to directly bring forth his divine sense. Isn't this a bit too simple? Could it be that because I have lived two lives, I am different from ordinary people in terms of spirit, so a jade soul flower directly birthed my divine sense? Lu Chongqing speculated in his heart. Without giving it much thought, he shared with Wuxia the phenomenon of his newly generated divine sense. He asked if this was the birth of divine sense. "I knew that you, Chongqing, could generate divine sense." Upon hearing this, Wuxia wasn't too surprised. In her eyes, Lu Chongqing was now a genius. Even though his spiritual root was only 9th grade, he had other opportunities and might even possess some kind of spiritual body. Now, at the 9th level energy refinement of cultivation level, taking the jade soul flower and producing divine sense was also normal. "Chongqing, how far can your divine sense reach?" Wuxia inquired. About 10 feet or so." Lu Chongqing closed his eyes again to sense, and then spoke. "Only 10 feet, that's already enough. A newly foundation established cultivator usually has divine sense coverage of about 30 feet. Chongqing, you don't need the aid of the heavenly heart lotus anymore when you attempt foundation establishment," Wuxia said with a tender look in her eyes. "This is all thanks to your guidance and help, Shiyu." Lu Chongqing also showed a hint of delight. He wasn't concerned about his divine sense being only 10 feet. After all, he hadn't truly reached foundation establishment. Being able to generate divine sense without foundation establishment was already quite good. "Shiyu, how is your cultivation going now?" At this time, Lu Chongqing also showed concern for Wuxia's cultivation. Originally, he was supposed to help Wuxia with her cultivation. However, for so long, it had been Wuxia helping him with his cultivation. Lu Chongqing felt somewhat embarrassed. "I need Lu Lang's help." Upon hearing Lu Changsheng's concern, Wuxia's eyelashes trembled lightly. Lu Chongqing immediately embraced the beauty and pressed his lips to hers. Suddenly, their breaths flowed steadily like the tide, back and forth. Lu Chongqing knew that merely doing this would not have any effect on Wuxia's cultivation. Later, to repay the fairy for her help in cultivation, he humbled himself, willing to work hard for reciprocity. Time passed unknowingly, and after a while, Lu Chongqing and the fairy ended their cultivation, holding Wuxia's fairy-like body tightly. The fairy's ebony hair was slightly disheveled, with strands sticking to her beautiful and bright cheeks. Her cool and beautiful eyes twinkled, brimming with allure and charm as they opened and closed. "Shiyu, it seems your cultivation still has a long way to go," Lu Chongqing, like a dog devouring the moon, nibbled on her tender snow-white flesh, his words muffled and soft. After tasting something salty, naturally, one craves a bit of sweetness to freshen the palate. Wuxia frowned delicately, lightly wrapping her arms around Lu Changsheng's shoulders, not wanting to move even a finger. The supreme forgetful love technique quickly circulated, calmly suppressing the surging desires. Feeling the stir of Lu Changsheng's noble instrument, she pursed her lips and leaned in closer with her head. Lu Chongqing was taken aback for a moment. He wanted to say there was no need for such measures. But the words reached his lips and were swallowed back down. Lu Changsheng's brows furrowed and relaxed unknowingly. He remembered how the fairy was once high above, like the 9 heavens' bright moon, unattainable, commanding reverence that forbade any irreverent thoughts. Yet now, she had descended to the mortal world, exposed to the elements. After a long while, Xiao Xia's fair face flushed red, her black hair cascading down around her temples, concealing her cold and stunning cheeks, her pretty brows slightly knitted. "Shiyu, you don't have to force yourself if this is too much for you," Lu Chongqing said, embracing the beauty in his arms. "I'm just cultivating, it's not a bother," Xiao Xia replied softly, her swan-like neck undulating, her voice trembling slightly. Although she didn't quite understand the matters between men and women, she wasn't entirely naive. She knew that all this time, Lu Chongqing had been restraining himself. Thus, she was also willing to take this step forward on her own. Seeing this, Lu Chongqing sighed softly in his heart. He couldn't help but think of the past with Lu Miaoge. After he had spent his life force to save Lu Miaoge, their relationship had taken a step further. Back then, Lu Miaoge was utterly obedient to him. Yet, she was unwilling to marry him. Now, Xiao Xia's behavior gave him the same feeling. It felt as if she was also considering ending their relationship after the cultivation was complete, severing their karmic ties. Lu Chongqing didn't ponder over it for too long. He knew these things couldn't be rushed. After all, with the relationship having progressed this far, he was certainly going to marry her. He continued to cultivate with Xiao Xia for several more days. Lu Chongqing also remembered that since he and Xiao Xia had arrived at the cave dwelling, they had been cultivating the whole time. It had been almost a month already. All this time, he hadn't even spoken to Lu Miaoge. And usually, his daughter Lu Qingzhu lived on Qingzhu Mountain. Only when he came to Red Leaf Valley Market would he bring the child to keep Lu Miaoge company. During this time, Lu Miaoge had to look after both the shop and the child, leaving her no time to cultivate. Soon after, Lu Chongqing told Xiao Xia that he must return home and that he would come back later to accompany her in cultivation. "All right," Xiao Xia, having completed her cultivation and regained her composure, nodded gently. Seeing her calm demeanor, it was only at times like these that Lu Chongqing felt he might be too affectionate. The favors of a beautiful woman are the hardest to repay. Lu Chongqing sighed softly as he left the cave dwelling and quickly headed back to the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop. After Lu Chongqing left, Xiao Xia's countenance and expression turned cold and detached. Her eyes, like the bright moon in the heavens, carried a faint celestial aura, indifferent and tranquil. "Sister Miaoge," Lu Chongqing arrived on the 3rd floor of the spiritual talisman shop and saw Lu Miaoge lulling her daughter to sleep. A sense of guilt immediately surged in his heart. "Chongqing, you're back." Lu Miaoge looked at Lu Chongqing, her face revealing a tender and warm smile, her aura gentle as water. Ever since becoming a mother, her once ethereal spirit had softened to a gentle and dignified grace. "Sister Miaoge, I was delayed due to my cultivation." Lu Chongqing guessed that Lu Miaoge already knew about him and Xiao Xia renting the cave dwelling. He did not conceal anything, explaining what he had been doing these days with Xiao Xia. One reason was, he still had quite some time left to cultivate with Xiao Xia. Additionally, Xiao Xia would also be considered the future mother of his child. And Lu Miaoge was privy to many of his secrets. Therefore, there was no need to completely hide such matters. P.S. I've been dragging my feet writing in the evenings recently, feeling muddled. While organizing the text today, I found 2 minor issues and have applied fixes. 1. In chapter 132, I forgot to mention the system's lottery when the protagonist's spiritual root progeny reached 25. Therefore, I simply added a sentence about winning a second-rank skill, Spirit Slaughterer in the lottery. 2. In chapter 139, when the protagonist's 100 refinements treasure body art broke through to the 3rd level, the magical treasure embryo obtained from the red-robed youth was refined and concentrated into his right hand. These 2 patches are just a few hundred words and don't affect other plotlines at all. Chapter 305. The first offspring completes the introduction of Qi into the body. _1 Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M. Lease, in this world, there actually exists such a cultivation technique, this way of cultivation. Upon hearing about Xiao Xia's affairs from Lu Changxing, the cultivation of the fairy, Lu Miaoge was somewhat surprised and amazed. She did not doubt Lu Changsheng's words. After all, there was no need for Lu Changxing to deceive her. Moreover, in this vast world, nothing is too strange. She had also seen in ancient texts that many profound cultivation techniques were very demanding and could even have side effects. It was just surprising to have a practitioner of such a technique appear right beside her. Yes, I was also very astonished when I first heard about it. This technique was also mentioned in ancient texts. Lu Changxing smiled and said. He did not say too much about the cultivation technique. After all, this matter could be considered Xiao Xia's privacy, her secret. It's also because you are charming, that fairy Xiao would choose you as her cultivation partner, Lu Miaoge said gently, with a graceful look on her face. Although she felt somewhat jealous about this matter, she did not mind too much. After all, Lu Changxing was known for being inconstant in love. Having married the 2 sisters and having not taken any more wives or concubines in the past 3 years, focusing instead on serious cultivation, had already made her very content. Besides, this matter was advantageous for Lu Changxing and could be considered an opportunity. But Changxing, after cultivating for so long, don't you have any thoughts about Fairy Xiao? Lu Miaoge looked at her husband with a smile that was not quite a smile. Ahem, if I say I don't have any thoughts at all, Sister Miaoge, you definitely won't believe me. But between her and me, it's only about cultivation after all. Moreover, our statuses are worlds apart. In the end, I'm afraid it's a relationship with no fate, and it cannot be forced. Lu Changxing coughed softly and then shook his head with a sigh. Although in his heart, Xiao Xia was already the mother of his child. But such things were not necessary to discuss at the moment, nor did it fit his persona. Storms begin with a small ripple, waves form from gentle disturbances. In my heart, husband has great aspirations, and you will surely soar to great heights in the future, achieving success on the path of immortality. How can you belittle yourself? Lu Miaoge looked at Lu Changxing, her voice was soft and sincere as she spoke. Having spent so many years with Lu Changxing as his wife, she could naturally tell that her husband was not truly devoid of ambition, but rather held great aspirations in his heart. She did not like to see Lu Changxing looking down on himself, belittling himself. Sister Miaoge. Lu Changxing was slightly startled. He did not expect that just by putting on a sighing face, his wife would comfort him like this. This warmed his heart and he felt very at ease. He then stepped forward and gently embraced his wife, preparing to assist her with cultivation. Little Zhu just fell asleep. Lu Miaoge, knowing what Lu Changxing was about to do, her cheeks tinged with red, whispered softly. It's all right, with the peaceful spirit talisman and the silencing talisman, she won't wake up, Lu Changxing said. Then he gently picked up his daughter, Lu Qingzhu, and placed her in the bedroom. He placed a peaceful spirit talisman on her to calm her mental spirit and ensure deep sleep. With a silencing talisman, he enveloped her in silence to block out any noise and prevent her from being disturbed. In the following time, Lu Changxing spent most of his days in the Red Leaf Valley Market. He went back to Qingzhou Mountain only once every month or 2. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. Because he spent most of this half year in the Red Leaf Valley Market with the fairy, Xiao Xia, and dual cultivation with Lu Miaoge, his progress in having children was slightly delayed. Only 3 more children were added. However, his cultivation level had reached the perfection of qi refinement after half a year's cultivation and was polished to perfection. He was ready to attempt foundation establishment. Changxing, in the next period of time, accompany me to travel around, and let's observe this bustling world, Xiao Xie said to Lu Changxing with a pulled-in lip after knowing he had reached the perfection of qi refinement, his cultivation level smooth and perfect, and that he was ready for foundation establishment. In this half a year, she barely stepped out of her cave dwelling. When Lu Changxing was there, she would cultivate with him. If Lu Changxing was not around, she would cultivate alone. All right. Lu Changxing looked at Xiao Xie, who showed a hopeful smile, and he realized something in his heart and nodded. During this half year, he and Xiao Xie had become incredibly close, having cultivated together in every way possible except for the final step. And in this process, Xiao Xie not only became increasingly proactive but her entire demeanor became lively and charming, as if she had shed all pretense, washing away the natural coolness and pride of her being. Returning to the Xiao Xie from over a decade ago in his memory. Making Lu Changxing puzzled about what was currently happening with Xiao Xie. How her cultivation was going. Shiyu, how's your cultivation coming along? Lu Changxing asked aloud. He guessed that Xiao Xie's cultivation must be nearly complete. Otherwise, she would not suggest at this time that he accompany her out. It's almost done. Xiao Xie pressed her lips together and did not hide anything. Hearing this, Lu Changxing internally said it was as expected. His feelings were somewhat complicated at the moment. If Xiao Xie's cultivation was coming to an end, and she was ready to overcome her emotional tribulations, it meant that his current relationship with her was also nearing its end. Congratulations, Shiyu. When do you plan to set out? Lu Changxing let out a breath, not becoming overly sentimental. A warm smile appeared on his face. In his view, this was not some sort of eternal separation. Even if there was a parting, it was merely to make the eventual reunion all the more joyous. Whatever you arrange. Xiao Xie saw the smile on Lu Changxing's face and also revealed a radiant smile, very enchanting. In that case, let's set off directly. Lu Changxing immediately said. He then walked out of the cave dwelling with Xiao Xie. He told Lu Miaoge that he would be away for a while, and handed her a stack of first-grade supreme talismans. Chapter 306, The First Offspring completes the introduction of Qi into the body. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lise his wife helped look after the peace talisman hole. Upon hearing this, Lu Miaoge didn't ask any further questions. She simply asked Lu Changxing to be more careful and vigilant. Afterward, Lu Changxing and Xiao Xie disguised themselves, concealing their true appearance, and left Red Leaf Valley Market. Upon leaving the marketplace, the two roamed aimlessly. They slept in the wilderness, stargazed, admired the moon, listened to the rain, tasted tea, and practiced cultivation. In this manner, roaming without purpose and taking in the sights, they arrived at a worldly city. Disguised, the two, though still exuding an uncommon aura, did not shine too brightly or attract undue attention. Changxing, I want to eat candied hawthorn on a stick. Changxing, I want to eat mung bean cake. Changxing, do you think those two sugar figurines look like us? Walking through the bustling city, Xiao Xie was like a lively and radiant young girl. Gone was her previous aloof and serene fairy-like demeanor. She held Lu Changxing's hand, moving through the streets with delight etched across her face. Now looking here, now there. Whenever she saw something tasty or fun, she would grab Lu Changxing's hand, a look of coquettish entreaty and hopeful expectancy on her face. Just like an ordinary young girl from the secular world. This must be Shiyu's true nature, Lu Changxing thought to himself as he watched her. He mused that cultivation, especially practicing the supreme forgetful love technique, really had a significant impact on a person. All right, well bye, Lu Changxing amiably responded to Xiao Xie's requests. There was not a trace of impatience on his face. He bought her anything she wanted. If Xiao Xie couldn't carry an item, he helped her carry it. If she took a few bites and left the rest, he took it to try. If it tasted good, he had some, if not, it was discarded. The two of them, just like a loving couple from the secular world, enjoyed themselves in the city. Last time, I spoke of how I used my life as an invitation card to respectfully welcome the young master into the martial arts world. The two wandered leisurely to a footbridge. Xiao Xie, upon seeing someone's storytelling, immediately took an interest and pulled Lu Chongqing over to listen. Under the bridge, an old man in a robe was speaking animatedly. This prince of the Northern Territory, guarded by sword divine, stepped out of the Northern Territory and into the martial arts world, thinking that the sky was high and the birds could fly freely. Yet, this world of martial arts was not as splendid and colorful as it seemed to this young prince, but was fraught with dangers because the moment he entered the martial arts world, today, this old man will leave the story here. If you want to know what happens next, come again tomorrow, said the robed old man before bowing out half an hour later. A young girl around the age of 12 came forward, carrying a copper basin, clearly expecting money. However, only a few well-dressed people scattered around tossed some copper coins into the basin, leaving the young girl looking disappointed. Xiao Xie, seeing this, gently tugged at Lu Changsheng's sleeve. Good performance deserves a reward. Lu Chongqing smiled, instantly turned a silver ingot into fragments. He then dropped a few silver fragments into the copper basin. The sound of the fragments hitting the basin drew attention from onlookers. No one expected such generosity. The little girl was stunned. She and her grandfather had never received such a substantial reward while storytelling at the footbridge. Arya, have you not thanked your benefactor yet? The storytelling elder saw this and quickly stepped forward, pulling the little girl to bow deeply, saying, "Thank you, young master, thank you benefactor." No need for that, Lu Chongqing gently waved off and, taking Xiao Xie's hand, turned to leave. Chongqing, what that old gentleman was saying was quite interesting. I wonder what will happen to that young master afterward, Xiao Xie said with a giggle, excitedly discussing the story's potential developments with Lu Chongqing. As she spoke, she spotted a fortune-telling stall nearby and, once again intrigued, pulled Lu Chongqing to have their fortunes told. But such fortune-telling would naturally not reveal any hidden great master from the dust of the world. Seeing Lu Chongqing and Xiao Xie as if they were a husband and wife, the fortune-teller offered a bunch of auspicious words. Xiao Xie, listening to these words, was also quite happy. So, the two of them spent more than half a month playing around the worldly city. That night, accompanied by soft mournful sobs, Lu Chongqing and Xiao Xie completed their cultivation. Chongqing, I'm ready for foundation establishment, Xiao Xie said, draped over Lu Changsheng's body like mud, in a quiet voice. Lu Chongqing was slightly taken aback. He had long anticipated this day. He asked, when are you planning to undergo foundation establishment? He knew that when Xiao Xie spoke those words, it meant she had made up her mind and had overcome the tribulation of emotions. 3 months later, on the night of the full moon, she replied. Then we will undergo foundation establishment together. Xiao Xie lifted her head slightly, her beautiful eyes gazing at Lu Chongqing, her face suffused with a blush, and she was stunningly beautiful. Okay, Lu Chongqing nodded and didn't say anything more. He knew too much talking was pointless. He also didn't want to say too much and affect Xiao Xie's mood or her foundation establishment. After all, in this world, cultivation is the paramount path. Given the current situation of their identities, there was no way he could bring this beauty home to raise children. So, once his own strength was about right, it would be all the same to bring her home as his bride. As for the supreme forgetful love technique, in Lu Changsheng's view, if he could melt her heart once, he could do it a second time. Don't you have anything you want to say to me? Asked Xiao Xie, regarding Lu Changsheng's prompt agreement. She pursed her lips. Overcoming the emotional tribulation is a good thing. Moreover, I will respect your choice, Lu Chongqing said softly. Man is not vegetation, who can be without passion? Having spent a year with Xiao Xia, who was as cold as the moon yet lively and alluring, he was very fond of her. In these circumstances, he certainly wouldn't let her go. Chapter 307, The first offspring completes the introduction of qi into the body. Moreover, he was still owed a favor by the other party. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lise, thank you, Chongqing. Xiao Xia pursed her lips as she spoke. She too felt somewhat apprehensive in her heart, worrying that Lu Chongqing would ask her to stay. Fearful that under Lu Chongqing's persuasion, she would find it hard to cut through her emotional ties, to ascending beyond all affections. In this year of cultivation, she had realized that she had less of the stubborn obsession for breakthroughs. She had begun to grow more sentimental, prone to daydreaming. In Lu Chongqing's presence, she would feel joy, worry, sadness, grief, and affection. This had helped her thoroughly comprehend her emotional tribulation, to understand the concept of transcending all emotions. What she needed to do now was to unsheath her sword and sever her ties, to seek the path to the ultimate truth beyond the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Shiyu, where do you plan to go for your foundation establishment? Lu Chongqing asked aloud. Foundation establishment couldn't be attempted just anywhere. At the very least, one would need a second-grade spiritual vein with an abundance of spiritual energy. Since he had always concealed his true cultivation level and strength, it was inconvenient for him to undertake foundation establishment in the Red Leaf Valley Market. Moreover, the cave dwellings in the Red Leaf Valley Market only held inferior second-grade spiritual energy. This spiritual energy was only sufficient for cultivation practice. To attempt a breakthrough to foundation establishment, it was significantly lacking. Furthermore, the breakthrough to foundation establishment involved a large disturbance, which could affect the marketplace's natural spiritual energy. Most marketplaces would not readily agree to host someone's attempt to break through to foundation establishment. Previously, my master gave me a token so that I can go to Qingyun Market and rent a second-order top-quality cave mansion. A second-order top-quality cave mansion is more than enough for us to attempt foundation establishment, Xiao Xia told Lu Chongqing. She had already considered this matter thoroughly beforehand. For her own foundation establishment, she could return to Qingyun sect, where there was a third-grade spiritual vein. But Lu Chongqing was not a disciple of the Qingyun sect. He couldn't go there for his foundation establishment. For ordinary cultivators looking to rent a second-order top-quality spiritual vein dwelling, the only option would be to go to one of the 3 great immortal cities. However, the 3 great immortal cities were far away and exceedingly troublesome to reach. Thus, she considered the largest cultivation marketplace under the Qingyun sect. All right, then we shall head to the Qingyun market, Lu Chongqing nodded as he heard this. He too had heard of the Qingyun market. He knew it was the largest marketplace under the Qingyun sect. It was even larger than the 9 Dragons market where he had been before. Such marketplaces typically do not open their second-order dwellings to the public. If it were not for Xiao Xia, he would indeed have no way to rent such a top-quality second-order cave mansion. He might have had to go to an immortal city to undertake his foundation establishment. Shortly after, the two of them left the secular world behind and set out towards the Qingyun market. Lu Chongqing glanced at the map. From their location to the Qingyun market was a journey of over 10,000 miles. However, neither he nor Xiao Xia were in a rush. They continued on, enjoying their journey as if they were sightseeing or on a leisurely outing. When nearing the Qingyun market, the two of them, having disguised their appearance and concealed their cultivation aura, even ran into 3 robber cultivators. But these were only 3 energy refinement late-stage robber cultivators. Facing these 3 robber cultivators, Lu Chongqing naturally showed no mercy, earning a little extra on the side. Now at the peak of qi refinement, his strength was comparable to that of a foundation establishment cultivator. Together with Xiao Xia, as long as they didn't encounter a Foundation establishment cultivator, they generally wouldn't run into any trouble. Besides, as long as they didn't come across Foundation establishment cultivators like the red-robed youth they had encountered before, they could take down an average Foundation establishment cultivator with their full strength and techniques. After a month's time, Lu Chongqing and Xiao Xie arrived at the Qingyun market. The entire marketplace was centered around a precipitous mountain, surrounded by mist, reaching high into the clouds. The mountain was encircled by a basin-like area, bordered by several large mountains, making it inaccessible to ordinary people. Qingyun Market. Xiao Xie and Lu Chongqing looked at the distant peak, steering their flying artifact towards the marketplace entrance. The entrance was bustling with countless cultivators, much like the Nine Dragons Market, with an endless stream of people queuing up. Just then, a surge of spiritual power flowed into Lu Changsheng's body, accompanied by the sound of a system notification. Congratulations to the host, your first offspring has completed the beginning phases of cultivation, entering the path of immortality. Bloodline effect, 5% increase in the likelihood of offspring having a spiritual root. Plus, 1 lucky draw chance. My first offspring has started his cultivation journey. Lu Chongqing was slightly startled upon hearing this sudden system notification before it dawned on him that his son, Lu Xianji, had completed the initial phase of cultivation. The last time he returned to Qingzhou Mountain, his wife Lu Miaoyun had mentioned that Lu Xianji was ready to start cultivating. At that time, Lu Chongqing didn't have the time, so he left Lu Miaoyun to handle it. As for his son completing the initial phase of cultivation so quickly, Lu Chongqing wasn't surprised. Over the years, he hadn't visited the White Jade Tower, and aside from his own cultivation expenses, his biggest expenditure was on his children. For Lu Xianji, everything had been of the spiritual kind since childhood, eating spirit rice, taking spirit meals. At the age of 6, he even began spending spirit stones to buy elixir medicines that consolidated and nourished the foundation. His conditions were far more privileged than those of the Lu family's ordinary descendants. If his son had taken as long as he, the father, had, 10 months, to complete the initial phase of cultivation, that indeed would have been strange. I didn't expect that the start of my child's cultivation journey would not only entitle me to a lucky draw but also increase the chances of my future offspring having a spiritual root, although only by 5%, which is a bit little, but this probability can probably still be increased, Lu Chongqing mused as he looked at the system notification. He wasn't overly excited about the lottery draw as he had done it many times before. However, he did find the passive increase in his offspring's likelihood of having a spiritual root appealing. After all, even with selective breeding, the chances of his children possessing a spiritual root were not especially high. Chapter 308, Lottery, Dao Soldier Soy Mother. _1, Chongqing, what's wrong? Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Li Xiaoxia saw that Lu Chongqing had suddenly fallen into a daze and asked aloud. It's my first time seeing such a huge marketplace, I'm a bit amazed. Lu Chongqing immediately came back to his senses and responded offhandedly. He no longer looked at the system interface. I've only been to this Qingyun market once myself. I can't even imagine how bustling the 3 great immortal cities must be. Upon hearing this, Xiao Xie said the following. Shortly thereafter, the two queued up to enter the marketplace. After paying 10 spirit stones and registering their information quickly, they received tokens and entered the market. Xiao Xie then started to introduce the layout of Qingyun Market to Lu Chongqing. The market is divided into the outer city, inner city, and core area. The outer city is a gathering place for poor and ordinary loose cultivators. As for the inner city, it depends on the area. The marketplace's shops, inns, stations, residential areas, and so on, are all concentrated here. As for the core area, it was the peak they had seen before that pierced the skies. A portion at the foot of the core area's mountain has cave mansions open to the public. The second-order top-quality cave mansion Xiao Xie spoke of was also on this mountain. The two made their way into the inner city. Looking at the bustling shops on both sides made Lu Chongqing mentally prepare to deal with the young man in the red robe's illicit gains in the marketplace after his foundation establishment. He hadn't been to Nine Dragons Market in a year. So the red-robed youth's loot had always been on him, unprocessed. Furthermore, after foundation establishment, the seven luminaries' great freedom sword scripture could break through to the second level, and he could condense the seven luminaries' heart lamp within his body. This seven luminaries' heart lamp could also be cast into a physical magic artifact, serving as a life-bound spiritual artifact. The materials needed to cast a life-bound spiritual artifact might be directly available in this Qingyun market. After a brief stroll in the inner city, they headed towards the central peak of the marketplace. Kaiyun Peak, Xiao Xie, needs to rent a second-order top-quality cave mansion. Upon reaching the core area and finding the person responsible for renting cave mansions, Xiao Xie showed her true face, presented her token, and spoke. Sister Xiao is renting a cave mansion, may I ask for what purpose? If you're secluding yourself to impact your cultivation level, we currently have an upper-grade cave mansion available, but if you're merely practicing temporarily, a B-ranked cave mansion would be sufficient for Sister Xiao, said the person, whose surname was Han, and appeared to be in his 40s or 50s, a disciple of Qingyun's sect as well. After checking the token, he immediately replied cordially. To impact my cultivation level, hence the need to rent a second-order top-quality A cave mansion, said Xiao Xie. Alright, Sister Xiao, a second-order top-quality A cave mansion is 500 spirit stones per year, Han said. Even for their own people, they still had to pay with spirit stones to rent, though the price was already considered cheap. After all, the cave mansion Lu Chongqing rented in Red Leaf Valley Market could almost be rented for 100 spirit stones. Thank you for your trouble, Brother Han. Xiao Xie took out the spirit stones. The other party didn't say much else, quickly helping them with the formalities and explaining some matters. I wonder if Sister Xiao is making this breakthrough to foundation establishment for herself, or is renting the cave mansion for a friend. If people found out that Shiyu Fairy of Kaiyun Peak is actually spending time in the same room with a man. TSK. After Xiao Xie and Lu Chongqing left, this Han sighed and shook his head. Although he had never met Xiao Xie, he had heard of her name and reputation. After all, she was a disciple of a nascent soul immortal. Not only was she incredibly beautiful, but she was also exceptionally talented and had a modicum of fame in Qingyun's sect. However, since this person is a friend of Fairy Shiyu, he must also be quite young. To dare to go for foundation establishment at this age, he must be no ordinary person. I wonder if he'll succeed in foundation establishment. A trace of envy and a hint of melancholy appeared in Han's eyes. He had been appointed to handle renting in this marketplace. Although his status and treatment were good, without an opportunity, foundation establishment was nearly hopeless. Therefore, seeing someone younger come to attempt foundation establishment, he felt quite sentimental. Xiao Xie and Lu Chongqing came to a misty part of the mountain waste. Utilizing the token for the restriction, they opened the gate of the cave mansion. The cave mansion wasn't large, roughly 100 square meters or so. Inside, the spiritual energy was dense and miasmic, nearly forming a thin mist. Is this what a second-order top-quality cave mansion looks like? Lu Chongqing took in the dense spiritual energy, feeling as if he were floating on air, his whole body suffused with a smooth sensation. It was his first time renting a second-order cave mansion. Whether in Qingzhou Valley or Red Leaf Valley Market, he had only used lower-grade spirit veins of the second rank. He could tell that this cave mansion was not merely second-order top quality but also had formations that gathered spiritual energy to the extreme. This A-ranked cave mansion is specifically used for cultivation breakthroughs, so it concentrates a lot of spiritual energy. Once the breakthrough is completed, the spiritual energy will thin out and need to be condensed again, Xiao Xie explained. Although she had never been to such a cave mansion, she had access to second-order top-quality spirit veins at Kaiyun Peak. She knew what a second-order top-quality spirit vein was like. Lu Chongqing nodded slightly and checked the interior of the cave mansion. He designated a bedroom and a practice room, with a simple stone table and stone bed. It was very Spartan. But this was typical for a cave mansion. As long as it was livable, it was acceptable. Since he had a little over a month until foundation establishment, they didn't practice day and night as usual. After a short time together, they both sat cross-legged and adjusted their qi, spirit, and mentality. Lu Chongqing wasn't in a rush to tune his state. In his mind, he silently called out, "System, I want to draw a prize." Immediately, the familiar system roulette wheel appeared. "Start the draw." Lu Changsheng's expression remained utterly calm, his mental spirit stirred slightly. And soon, a flash of golden light appeared on the wheel and began to spin rapidly. After a while, the golden light gradually settled on other. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Dao Soldier Golden Armor Bean Mother. The reward has been dispatched to the system space, the host can check it at any time. Chapter 309, Lottery, Dao Soldier Soy Mother. A golden bean the size of an egg emerged from the big wheel, accompanied by a system notification sound. Reading Omicron N Novel Cool. Omicron M, Lease, Dao Soldier, Golden Armor Bean Mother. Lu Chongqing saw the reward from this lottery draw and his eyebrows raised slightly. He had no idea what this Dao Soldier was. He looked at the Golden Armor Bean Mother in the system space. Dao Soldier, Golden Armor Bean Mother, Quality, 3rd Rank, Description, a spirit plant class Dao Soldier cultivated by the Golden Armor sect, refined through secret techniques. It can transform into a 2nd rank Golden Armor Warrior, and through planting and cultivation, it can propagate spirit beans. The beans germinate in 3 years, grow leaves in another 3, flower in the next, and bear beans in the last set of 3 years. A spirit plant class Dao Soldier that can turn into a 2nd rank Golden Armor Warrior. Lu Chongqing, looking at the description of the Golden Armor Bean Mother in the system space, showed a hint of interest. Based on this introduction, he roughly guessed what this Dao Soldier was. It should be similar to a puppet or a demon beast. This Golden Armor Bean Mother could transform into a 2nd rank Golden Armor Warrior, which in Lu Changsheng's view, should be equivalent to the strength of a puppet or demon beast at the foundation establishment stage. What interested Lu Chongqing the most was that this Golden Armor Bean Mother could propagate spirit beans through planting and cultivation. Although he didn't know what use these spirit beans had, he found it very interesting. After all, if it were just the combat power of the 2nd rank, in Lu Changsheng's view, it certainly didn't match the quality of the 3rd rank. But Wuxia was still there. It wasn't convenient for him to extract the Bean Mother from the system space out of thin air to check the detailed information now. He planned to take a closer look at this Golden Armor Bean Mother when he had time. Immediately after, Lu Chongqing gathered his mental spirit and sat down cross-legged with his eyes closed. He operated the 7 luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture and began to adjust his condition. At the same time, his thoughts in his mind started to flow. Scenes from his youth before his memories awakened. Scenes after awakening his memories at the Qingyun sect's heart-questioning platform. The disappointment in his heart when he failed to be chosen by the immortal sects. The fear of death when he encountered the Qin family's ambush on his way to Qingzhou Mountain. The excitement and joy in his heart when he married Lu Lanshu, Lu Zier, Lu Qing'er, and when his first son, Lu Pingon, was born. With the system, obtaining 2nd rank talisman making, maintaining caution, and displaying his skills. These scenes, like fleeting glimpses, appeared in Lu Changsheng's mind, as vivid as if before his eyes. After a long while, Lu Changsheng's thoughts gradually calmed down. In his view, although the past decade had not been easy, it hadn't been particularly arduous either. He had no regrets or obsessions in his heart. He felt clear-minded, spiritually fulfilled, and full of hope for the future. Although Xiao Xia's situation had some impact on him, with the system by his side, he was full of confidence in his future. He didn't consider it a troublesome matter, nor one that needed too much worry. At worst, he would just wait until he achieved core formation. As long as he reached core formation, he could legitimately visit the Qingyun sect to ask for her hand in marriage. Furthermore, Lu Chongqing also had a debt of gratitude to a nascent soul immortal. So passed half a month. Lu Chongqing awoke from meditation, opening his eyes. He felt that his energy and spirit were at their peak, his condition perfect. He was ready to attempt foundation establishment at any moment. Chongqing, there are only 10 days left until the night of the full moon, which is when I plan to attempt foundation establishment. If you need more time to prepare, we can wait until next month. Xiao Xia also woke up, opened her beautiful eyes, and said to Lu Chongqing. Attempting foundation establishment was a major event. The condition was extremely important. Some people, in order to be cautious, would even sit in meditation for years, waiting for a soul-inspiring opportunity. She was waiting for the night of the full moon, the time when yin energy condensed. But this timing wasn't necessarily suitable for Lu Chongqing. I'm already prepared, ready at any time, Lu Chongqing said with a light laugh. His voice was laced with a confidence that suggested he held a winning hand. In front of Xiao Xia, he didn't conceal his confident and spirited demeanor too much. Good, Xiao Xia responded with a faint smile, noticing Lu Chongqing's confident appearance. During this time, not only had Lu Chongqing gained a deeper understanding of her, but she had also seen a different side of Lu Chongqing. Shiyu, how are your preparations? Do you feel confident? Lu Chongqing asked Xiao Xia. He was almost completely confident about his own foundation establishment, full of absolute conviction. But he still didn't quite understand Xiao Xia's situation. 50%, Xiao Xia replied. Xiao Xia spoke softly. Only a 50% chance. Upon hearing this, Lu Chongqing's heart gave a slight jolt. 50% is already enough. Xiao Xia calmly stated, her entire being exuding an ethereal and transcendent charm. Since you say it's enough, Shiyu, it must be sufficient. Lu Chongqing did not probe further. He had long noticed that Xiao Xia would from time to time reveal that noble and sacred, cold and detached demeanor, akin to the 9 heavens bright moon. He knew she was still influenced by her cultivation technique. This 50% confidence probably wasn't a problem with the 3 challenges in the foundation establishment, in lifting the Tao platform. It was likely about the emotional tribulation. Shiyu, is your cultivation nearing perfection? Lu Chongqing immediately inquired. I'm 1 step away. When establishing my foundation, I hope Lu Lang can assist me. Xiao Xia let her ethereal demeanor fade, revealing a sweet smile as she softly spoke. Shiyu, tell me the truth, does this step really exist? If it doesn't, I won't mind. Moreover, with my current situation, I don't need any secret technique to successfully establish my foundation. Lu Chongqing said. He naturally knew what his assistance entailed. When they were intimate before, Xiao Xia had mentioned that when striking at foundation establishment, it would also be the final step in her cultivation. At that time, she would also help him establish his foundation through a secret technique. But deep down, Lu Chongqing vaguely felt that her cultivation was almost sufficient, and whether this step existed or not didn't really matter. No. Xiao Xia's lips revealed a pure and sweet smile, like that of an innocent young girl. Lu Chongqing was taken aback. He hadn't expected Xiao Xia to be so forthright. Since Lu Lang is asking, Shiyu naturally won't deceive you. Xiao Xia happily smiled, letting her delicate body fall into Lu Chongqing's embrace, cuddling cozily into him. Resting her cheek against his chest, she spoke softly, but Shiyu simply wishes to do so, to help Lu Lang. Because Shiyu wants to tell Lu Lang that my love for you, although it started from cultivation, does not end with cultivation. Xiao Xie lifted her head slightly, her clear beautiful eyes meeting Lu Changsheng's gaze. Then you should also know that the fate between you and me is now not something that can be severed just because you say so. Lu Changsheng had restrained himself from speaking his mind before, worried that it would affect Xiao Xie's state of mind, not mentioning many things. Now that she had so candidly revealed her intentions, Lu Changsheng felt less concern about these matters. Shi Yu is well aware. Xiao Xie lifted her head, her face full of love as she kissed him and said, with Lu Lang having so many beautiful wives and concubines, in time, you will naturally forget about Shi Yu. And if I can't forget? Lu Changsheng asked. Changsheng, I'm sorry. Xiao Xie was taken aback, her voice trembling slightly as she spoke. There's nothing to be sorry about, Shi Yu. As long as you can successfully establish your foundation, it'll comply with whatever you wish. Lu Changsheng quickly reassured her, worried he might affect her mentality, impacting her foundation establishment. After all, to him, these matters were not as important as cultivation at the moment. With cultivation, there would be a future, but if cultivation failed, there would be even more trouble ahead. Thank you, Changsheng. Xiao Xie said softly. There's no need for such words between us. Lu Changsheng held her delicate face, capturing her lips with his. At the core area of Qingyun Market, all grade cave dwellings are rented out. I remember there was one left before, wasn't there? A 24 or 25-year-old youth, handsome and majestic, with a spirited air about him, inquired of Steward Han in front of him. Young Master Mang, last month Fairy Shi Yu from Cayenne Peak came and rented that grade cave dwelling. Steward Han looked at the white-robed youth and respectfully replied. Shi Yu Jr.'s sister, I recall she went down the mountain for experience, didn't she? Besides, if she wanted to strike for a higher cultivation level, she could have just returned to our sect and make the attempt under the protection of the sect leader. Upon hearing this, the youth furrowed his brows slightly. Alright, since Shi Yu Jr.'s sister has rented it, let it be. Arrange a B-grade cave dwelling for me. The young man didn't dwell on it and simply waved his hand, instructing directly. Yes, young Master Meng, please wait a moment, I will arrange it for you now. Steward Han immediately responded. Chapter 310, Foundation Establishment, Yin Yang 5 Elements Tao Foundation. _1 May, also called the Gao month. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, lease on the 15th of May, this day is also known as the Day of Great Yin's Coalescence. As night fell, a crescent moon was slowly rising. In the Qingyun marketplace, nestled on the mountainside of Core Peak, within a cave dwelling. Changsheng. Xiao Xie looked at the man before her, Lu Changsheng, and called out softly. She was dressed in a moon-white garment. The curves of her lithe figure were tastefully concealed by the attire. Yet her beauty was still obvious. Underneath the skirt, the outlines of her long, straight, jade-like legs were faintly visible. Her delicate feet adorned with white silk stockings and embroidered shoes appeared untouched by dust. At this moment, Xiao Xie reverted to her formerly detached demeanor. Her bearing was cold and saintly, like the mysterious moon in the 9 heavens. Her devastating beauty carried an aloof grace that seemed untouched by worldly taint. She was like the everlasting ice and snow, inspiring reverence at a glance. Let's begin. Lu Changsheng gazed at Xiao Xie's bearing, nodded, and spoke no further. Xiao Xie's cool and luminous gaze met with Lu Changsheng's eyes, which shone like stars, clear and devoid of worldly desires. In the most secret depths of her heart, ripples of love began to stir. Her breath grew slightly erratic, betraying the fairy's inner turmoil. They locked eyes for a moment, and her soft, boneless, white hands reached out to encircle his neck. As stars shifted and oceans transformed, amidst the flowing water and falling flowers, a harmonious symphony of life began to play. The two of them listened to this silent symphony. Spirit and flesh started to merge into the rhythm of the symphony, making it increasingly hard to distinguish between each other. Outside the cave dwelling, under the endless night sky, the bright moon hung high. A fierce flood dragon soared from the abyss toward the bright moon, roaring as it went. In the face of the vicious flood dragon, the cool and luminous bright moon burst forth with dazzling light. However, under the flood dragon's assault, the cool and proud bright moon seemed to frown like a fairy, and with a soft chant, endless moonlight poured forth, merging into the flood dragon's body. The flood dragon, having absorbed the essence of the bright moon, hauled towards the sky, yearning to transform from a flood dragon into a true dragon. Chongqing. Inside the dwelling, although Wuxia maintained the dual cultivation stance, the passion that had adorned her beautiful face was now replaced by a noble and sacred radiance. Lu Chongqing said nothing. As the great moonlight from Wuxia surged into his body, his dantian seemed to be set aflame with towering waves, roaring continuously. This roaring was inaudible to others, but Lu Chongqing felt it clearly within himself, like thunder, rumbling mightily. He hadn't yet begun to initiate the foundation establishment, yet his seven-colored dantian was already roaring and churning. It seemed as if a myriad of golden light wished to condense from within the dantian. If I do not succeed, it would be a defiance of the natural order. Lu Chongqing felt this overwhelming and vast power, his eyes bright with a spirited gleam. With a gesture, a porcelain bottle from his storage bag fell into his hand. It was the foundation establishment elixir. His current condition for undertaking the foundation establishment, even without the elixir, held a 70 to 80% certainty of success. But even with the slightest risk, Lu Chongqing was unwilling to accept it. The foundation establishment elixir could not only harmonize the three barriers, enhancing the spiritual roots transformation and absorption of nature's spiritual energy, but it could also ensure that one would not suffer backlash in the event of a failed foundation establishment. If foundation establishment failed, at best one would be injured and their cultivation level would regress. At worst, the meridians and dantian could be damaged, leaving one crippled or even leading to the demise of one's cultivation path. Therefore, even with a 99% chance of success, Lu Chongqing would choose to consume the foundation establishment elixir for his breakthrough. Boom! As the foundation establishment elixir was ingested, Lu Chongqing's seven luminaries' great freedom sword scripture began to circulate within him, as spiritual power, like a tidal wave, converged towards his dantian, assaulting the barriers for foundation establishment. The spiritual energy within the cave also surged towards him like a raging tempest at this moment, forming a vortex of spiritual energy. Rumble. Simultaneously, the qi and blood within Lu Chongqing's body began to seethe tumultuously, rushing forth like mighty rivers and streams. First barrier of foundation establishment, the qi and blood barrier. This barrier required the infusion of immense nature's spiritual energy into one's meridians and dantian. If the body cannot withstand this process, foundation establishment would fail. This is why cultivators over the age of 60, whose bodies gradually age and qi and blood weaken, or those with disabilities and hidden illnesses, have almost no hope of establishing their foundation. Because they simply cannot bear such an infusion of immense spiritual energy. Lu Chongqing, having cultivated the 100 refinements treasure body art, possessed a fleshly body comparable to high-quality magic artifacts. Facing the spiritual energy tempest that swept through like a storm, he was like an ancient divine mountain, unshaken by wind and rain, standing tall and immovable. Second barrier of foundation establishment, the mana barrier. During the qi refinement realm, one transforms nature's spiritual energy into one's own spiritual power. But when initiating foundation establishment, one must transform this spiritual power into mana, converting from a gaseous to a liquid state. The purer and denser the spiritual power, the easier it is to liquefy and transform into mana. If one consumed too many elixir medicines during the qi refinement realm, or relied on breakthrough elixirs, tonic supplements, and other methods, it could lead to a base of spiritual power that's insubstantial and impure mana, making it hard to condense the Tao foundation. Lu Chongqing cultivated the orthodox level cultivation technique 7 luminaries Great Freedom Sword Scripture, thus his spiritual power was naturally extremely pure. While he relied on a constant intake of elixirs and often engaged in dual cultivation with women, 7 luminaries sword qi was capable of refining away the elixir toxicity. Additionally, his dual cultivation was practiced with moderation, merely as a marital pleasure, and was not used as a means to enhance his cultivation level. Therefore, there wasn't a trace of insubstantiality in the foundation of his spiritual power. It was solid and unwavering. Furthermore, under the influence of the Golden Crow Elixir's Great Sun Essence and Xiao Xia's Great Yin Moonlight, he saw in his Dantian that the essence of the Great Sun and the Great Yin Moonlight seemed to transform into a yin-yang fish, helping him swallow and refine nature's spiritual energy. Within his qi ocean, the rich gaseous spiritual power from the Dantian was continuously being compressed into a liquid state, ready to transform his Dantian into a true lake. The third barrier, Divine Sense Barrier. Previously, under Xiao Xia's guidance and with the aid of the Purple Mansion Nurturing Divine Technique and Jade Soul Flower, he had already given birth to Divine Sense. Chapter 311, Foundation Establishment, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Tao Foundation. Although Lu Changsheng's Divine Sense only extended 3 feet, it was still Divine Sense nonetheless. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, least therefore, this challenge did not exist for him. Next is the transformation of the Lake of Mana into the true lake, the coalescing of the Tao Foundation. Having spent so much time with Xiao Xia, Lu Chongqing was exceedingly familiar with the process of foundation establishment. He knew that after passing the 3 challenges of foundation establishment, the most crucial step awaited. He would use his divine sense to precisely control his physical body and mana, transforming all the mist-like spiritual energy within his qi ocean core into liquid mana. This would then turn the lake of mana into the true lake and lift up the platform of the Tao, shedding his mortal shell. This step demanded not only the cultivator's spiritual root aptitude but also the external environment. If the spiritual root's aptitude was too poor, absorbing and transforming spiritual energy too slowly, there would be insufficient transformed liquid mana, preventing the coalescing of the Tao platform and leading to a failed foundation establishment. This is why most cultivators needed to rely on foundation establishment elixirs to build their foundation. Apart from the earth spirit root and heavenly spiritual root, even a superior grade spiritual root could fail the foundation establishment if one was not careful with absorbing and transforming spiritual energy. Lu Changsheng's current 5th grade spiritual root wasn't exceptional, but it wasn't so bad as to hold him back. Moreover, he also possessed half of a Gingjin body constitution. Furthermore, he was not only assisted by a foundation establishment elixir, but he also had the great sun essence of the Golden Crow elixir and Xiao Xia's supreme Yin Moonlight. Boom! 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 Raging spiritual energy surged toward Lu Chongqing in a vast and mighty vortex that spanned dozens of feet. Inside his body, it was as if mountains crumbled and seas tsunamied with unceasing roars. Gaseous spiritual power continuously misted then liquefied into droplets of multicolored, crystalline mana. Each droplet of mana contained a power far greater than his river-like spiritual power. This was a qualitative difference. Like the difference between crude iron and steel refined 100 times over. As the gaseous mana lake gradually transformed into a liquid mana lake, the mana within surged and rolled, and a 7-colored jade disc slowly took shape. It was the yin-yang foundation base of the 7 luminaries' Great Freedom Sword Scripture. However, just at this moment, suddenly, out of nowhere, Lu Chongqing saw a wisp of spirit-nurturing energy abruptly rush into his lake of mana. It allowed the great sun essence and supreme yin moonlight, akin to twin fishes of yin and yang, to blend perfectly and rush together into the 7-colored jade disc. Someone is undergoing foundation establishment. Hiss, such a terrifying spiritual vortex. This is no ordinary person's foundation establishment effort. It must be a prodigy of the Qingyun sect. By the looks of it, they've reached the crucial moment of foundation establishment. The anomaly in nature's spiritual energy caused by Lu Chengsheng's foundation establishment attracted the attention of many within and outside Core Peak. They realized someone was undergoing foundation establishment. And from the size and fluctuations of the spiritual vortex, they deduced that this person was far from ordinary. TSK, such a rare sight, this spiritual vortex. Is this fairy Shiyu attempting foundation establishment, or one of her friends? The steward Han immediately guessed that it was something related to Xiao Xie's dwelling when he saw the location of the spiritual vortex. While people in the Qingyun market did undergo foundation establishment from time to time, it was not a very large number. Moreover, a spiritual vortex of such magnificent grandeur was clearly a sign of a genius at work. Is it Sister Shiyu who is undergoing foundation establishment? It seems I should go and offer my congratulations. Halfway up the mountain, within a E-character cave dwelling, a spirited and vigorous young man opened his eyes, walked out of the cave dwelling, and muttered to himself upon seeing the spiritual vortex. Inside the dwelling, Fairy Xiao Xie, with her pure and radiant jade-like body, shone like the bright moon, adorned by a sacred glow of moonlight, her beauty beyond compare. She watched Lu Chongqing, who was attempting foundation establishment, and softly chanted, "The world abounds with troubling affections, yet the bright moon shines upon the true heart." In the supreme forgetful love technique's dreamy voyage, only the great Tao remains in the heart. A complexity briefly crossed her holy countenance. Then her expression settled into calm and detached tranquility, as if she had found liberation or acceptance. The supreme forgetful love technique, intangible and invisible, the restraint that troubled her for so long at her realm's bottleneck, dissipated like ice and snow at that moment with her acceptance. This change in her aura promptly gathered the surrounding spiritual vortex, and she began her attempt at foundation establishment. Just as Xiao Xie began her foundation establishment, what's going on here? Lu Chongqing looked at the yin-yang fishes that had entered his 7 luminaries foundation base. He could clearly sense that the originally misaligned Great Sun Essence and Supreme Yin Moonlight had achieved a perfect balance under the influence of the spirit-nurturing energy, and there was an addition of an abstruse and profound force. Together, these 3 forces merged into a Taiji yin-yang fish that swam within the 7 luminaries foundation base. As if within the 7-colored jade disk of the Tao Foundation, the powers of the solar and lunar luminaries were being absorbed and devoured by the Taiji yin-yang fish, causing Lu Chengsheng's 7 luminaries Tao Foundation to vibrate and resonate, starting to coalesce anew. Could this wisp of energy actually enhance the quality of the Tao Foundation just like the Great Sun Essence and Supreme Yin Moonlight? Lu Chongqing looked at the changes in his Tao Foundation with a mix of amazement and doubt. He wasn't surprised by the inclusion of the Great Sun Essence or the Supreme Yin Moonlight into the platform of the Tao, since Xiao Xie had previously told him that the Great Sun Essence was a rare treasure of heaven and earth. It could solidify his foundation at a deeper level, and even take his 7 luminaries Tao Foundation to the next level. The same was true of her Supreme Yin Moonlight. However, he had not anticipated that the wisp of spirit-nurturing energy, which a nascent soul female cultivator had once left within him and that he had nearly forgotten, would also surge forth at this moment. Initially, the wisp of spirit-nurturing energy had a warming effect on the body, but later on, there was no significant effect. He had spent some time researching it, consulting numerous texts to see what this energy was, but after a long search without finding any relevant information, he remained unclear about the nature of the energy. Seeing that it did not affect him negatively and with no way to handle it, he had let it be, slowly forgetting about it. Chapter 312, Foundation Establishment, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Tao Foundation. Reading Omicron N Novel Cool. Omicron M, lease unexpectedly, at the final moment of his foundation establishment, the spirit-nurturing energy unexpectedly emerged, allowing the Great Sun Essence and Taiyin Moon Essence to merge perfectly. He could feel that before this moment, the great sun essence and the tiny moon essence were not harmonious, failing to achieve balance. It was under the influence of this spirit-nurturing energy that they could. Moreover, he vaguely felt that this spirit-nurturing energy was even more formidable than the great sun essence and even Xiao Xia's tiny moon essence. I wonder what my Tao foundation can transform into under this power. Lu Chongqing watched the seven-colored jade disc-like Tao foundation in the Dan Lake humming and trembling, witnessing his own foundation base recondensing. As for what kind of foundation base his original seven-colored jade disc-like base would turn into, Lu Chongqing had no idea. After all, Xiao Xia had only roughly explained a few types of foundation bases to him. But when it comes to foundation bases, even if they are the same, they vary based on different people's cultivation techniques and conditions. One can't generalize. However, Lu Chongqing knew that he now needed a massive amount of spiritual energy to support the recondensation of his foundation base. Instantly, his entire being became like a black hole, wholeheartedly devouring the nature's spiritual energy from all directions, refining the spiritual energy and gathering it into his foundation base. Rumble. In the Dan Lake, the foundation table shaped like a seven-colored jade disc grew brighter and more dazzling. In this process, his seven luminaries Tao foundation, due to the sun and moon sectors being devoured by the yin-yang fish, gradually turned its seven colors into five. And after swallowing the sun and moon sectors, the small yin-yang fish that had grown significantly larger swam out from the jade disc, circulating around it. At this moment, the new Tao foundation began to slowly take shape. The foundation base with its yin-yang five elements light slowly circulated, filled with profound mysteries, and gently rose from the Dan Lake. Boom, 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 as the foundation table rose, Lu Changsheng's heart involuntarily started to beat faster. His meridians expanded, his bones creaked noisily, and his blood surged like great rivers and oceans. Each heartbeat brought forth an increase in his entire Bodhis energy, growing in might from inside out. Boom! Eventually, Lu Changsheng's foundation table lifted off from the Dan Lake and spiraled to his Qi ocean core. The foundation table displayed colors of the five elements, surrounded by swirling yin-yang energies. In an instant, rays of light burst forth from the foundation base, radiating so intensely they almost penetrated his body. Accompanied by the vast rays of light, an indescribable mana spread out at this moment, causing Lu Changsheng's hair to flutter without any wind. Lifting the foundation base, shedding his mortal coil. This massive force of the yin-yang five elements circulated within Lu Changsheng's body. It cleansed his marrow and polished his skin, scouring every inch of flesh and muscle. Lu Chongqing, who cultivated the 100 Refinements treasure body art, already had an immaculate body, but at this moment, still a considerable amount of impurities were expelled. Time passed, no one knew how long. As the inner brilliance dissipated, the transformation ended, and Lu Chongqing opened his eyes. Foundation establishment succeeded. His pupils seemed to circulate with the yin-yang energies, emitting blinding rays of light. The impurities on his body dispersed, releasing a refreshing fragrance. Is this what foundation establishment feels like? Lu Chongqing looked at his pale, translucent body, now reborn from bone to flesh. Feeling the power filling his entire body, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Foundation establishment was always a small goal he had strived for. Now, he had finally taken that step. In this world, he could at least protect himself to a certain degree. With my current strength, I could probably kill my former self with a slap of my hand. Lu Chongqing felt an unprecedented surge of power within him, and he thought to himself. After his breakthrough in foundation establishment, he felt his mana had increased more than tenfold. Moreover, at the moment of his breakthrough, the profound origin bead within him also spun wildly, inhaling and exhaling spiritual energy. It gradually transformed the stored spiritual power into mana. His internal mana had nearly tripled from its original level. Right then, Lu Chongqing felt better and more confident than ever before. Even if he faced the young man in the red robe from before, he could fight against him. As for killing him, it was hard to say. After all, his licking the packet revealed that the opponent had a backup. And he had just broken through Foundation establishment, still lacking the appropriate techniques for the Foundation establishment stage. My divine sense is almost at 18 zhang. That's my only weakness now. Lu Chongqing then checked the status of his divine sense. Normal cultivators just breaking through to Foundation establishment typically have a divine sense of around 10 zhang. His 18 feet stature, although far surpassing the average level, was indeed a weak point compared to his physical body and mana. Immediately after, Lu Chongqing looked towards the Dao platform within his Qi Ocean Dantian. The Dao platform was like a jade disc, exhibiting 5 colors, surrounded by the yin-yang energies. Yin-yang 5 elements foundation base, so this is my Dao foundation. Lu Chongqing, gazing at his own Dao platform, displayed a somewhat odd expression on his face. Upon seeing his Dao foundation, he instinctively knew the information about his own foundation. The originally powerful and dominant 7 luminaries foundation base, after transforming into the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base, not only had more formidable mana. The Supreme Yin and Supreme Yang, under the fusion of the Great Sun essence, the Supreme Yin Moon essence, and the Spirit Nurturing energy, had turned into the yin-yang energies. These yin-yang energies had 2 effects. One was that they doubled the effectiveness of his dual cultivation. The other was, by using dual cultivation, to consume his own yin-yang energies to repair and refine someone else's Dao foundation. Dao foundations are categorized as fragmented, flawed, flaw-free, and perfect. His yin-yang energies could repair the flaws and fractures found in fragmented and flawed foundations, ultimately refining them into flaw-free ones. This effect could be said to be exceedingly against the heavens. Even though Lu Chongqing did not have much understanding of Foundation establishment, he knew that all heavenly treasures capable of repairing Dao Foundation flaws were immensely precious and rarely seen. And the fact that his consumption of yin-yang energies could repair such flaws, even refining them into flawless foundations, was truly against the heavens. This Dao Foundation effect, is it not tempting me to switch cultivation techniques? Lu Chongqing, watching the yin-yang energies flowing on his Dao platform, twitched the corners of his mouth. He thought about the yin-yang harmony technique he possessed. A peripheral sect-level cultivation technique that primarily focused on dual cultivation. Of course, if he switched to the yin-yang harmony technique, relying on the effects of the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base, his cultivation level would progress rapidly. But he only allowed himself to think about it. The yin-yang harmony technique was far inferior to the 7 luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture. Although the cultivation speed was much faster, the foundation would be much weaker. Moreover, now that he had established his foundation, switching to another cultivation technique would be very troublesome. If he really switched to another cultivation technique, he might lose 30 to 50% of his cultivation level. However, the second effect of the yin-yang energies made Lu Chongqing feel quite pleased. He was well aware that among his current wives and concubines, hardly a few could achieve foundation establishment. At the moment, only Lu Miaogo was hopeful for foundation establishment. But even if she succeeded, it was very likely she would have a flawed foundation. Forging a flawless foundation would be difficult. In such a situation, his Dao foundation effect came into play. If his wives and concubines could forcibly establish their foundations in the future, even if the foundations were fragmented, he could still lend a hand. If I were to make this effect known, I fear countless female cultivators attempting foundation establishment would be willing to present themselves at my doorstep, even willing to have children for it. After all, being able to refine and repair a foundation is also a chance for core formation. But such things definitely cannot be revealed. Otherwise, I might end up being captured by some old monster and used as a tool. Lu Chongqing thought to himself. He also knew this matter absolutely should not be revealed carelessly. Now that I've established my foundation, shouldn't I compose a celebratory poem to enhance the occasion? After checking his own condition, an idea suddenly occurred to Lu Chongqing. Just as he was racking his brains, ready to come up with a celebratory poem, he suddenly sensed that something was off with Xiao Xie beside him. Lu Chongqing turned his gaze towards Xiao Xie, who was as cold and pure as the Guanghan fairy, with jade-like skin and bones, bereft of any thread, attempting foundation establishment. Noticing that she was at the point of condensing her Tao foundation. But something seemed amiss with her condition. The condensation of the Tao foundation appeared to have encountered some problems. Lack of spiritual energy. Lu Chongqing immediately realized what the problem was. Logically, a second-rank high-grade cave dwelling should have been sufficient for the successful foundation establishment of both of them. But just now, during his breakthrough, he had condensed the 7 luminaries foundation base, then transformed it, recondensing the 7 luminaries foundation base into the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base. At the same time, the profound origin bead inside his body was frantically absorbing spiritual energy. It had nearly depleted over half of the cave dwelling's nature's spiritual energy. And at this moment, Xiao Xie also began her foundation establishment. Xiao Xie herself was condensing a perfect foundation base, which required far more of nature's spiritual energy than the average person. In this circumstance, the lack of sufficient spiritual energy from the cave dwelling made it difficult to support Xiao Xie's successful condensation of her Tao foundation. Chapter 313, The Idea of Establishing One's Own Family _1 Xiao Xie, unclothed and composed, sat cross-legged with a dignified and cool expression on her face. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, least she hadn't expected that, at the critical moment of foundation establishment, she would encounter a shortage of external spiritual energy. But once foundation establishment reached this step, it was impossible to stop, nor could she afford to. With a graceful motion of her hand, a heap of spirit stones clattered out from the storage bag, absorbing the spiritual energy within the stones. Lu Chongqing could tell that most of these spirit stones were lower-grade spirit stones. Only a few were middle-grade spirit stones. This was normal. After all, Xiao Xie, no matter how wealthy, was merely an energy-refining cultivator. Without hesitation, Lu Chongqing took out the hundreds of middle-grade spirit stones he had obtained from the red-robed youth. With a strong squeeze, he crushed each middle-grade spirit stone into powder, causing the spiritual energy to disperse. Then, another porcelain bottle appeared. Shiyu, Foundation Establishment Elixir. Lu Chongqing poured the inferior Foundation Establishment Elixir from the bottle. He could see that Xiao Xie had not taken any foundation establishment elixirs. Although he did not know why she hadn't prepared any foundation establishment elixirs, given the current situation, he felt it was necessary to take one for safety's sake, even if it was an inferior one. Despite being inferior, at least it was better than nothing. Moreover, the inferior foundation establishment elixir was only less effective in harmonizing the 3 aspects and transforming the absorbed spiritual energy. It could only increase the chances of successful foundation establishment by 10%. As for protecting the meridians and dantian, its efficacy was the same as a regular foundation establishment elixir. It could ensure that a foundation establishment failure would not result in a backlash. Foundation Establishment Elixir. Xiao Xie's beautiful eyes widened slightly, surprised to see the Foundation Establishment Elixir in Lu Chongqing's hand. She had seen Lu Chongqing take one himself. She hadn't expected that Lu Chongqing would still have another. After all, even within Qingyun sect's inner sect, obtaining a Foundation Establishment Elixir was not easy. Seeing the concerned look on Lu Chongqing's face, Xiao Xie's calm heart rippled slightly. No need, she said softly. Her cultivation of the supreme forgetful love technique was crucial for her foundation, depending on her state of mind. As long as her state of mind reached perfection, she was certain to succeed in foundation establishment without relying on external objects. That was why, despite her status, she could have applied for a foundation establishment elixir but chose not to. Furthermore, it was just an external deficiency of nature's spiritual energy. It was not a complete absence of spiritual energy, which did not mean her foundation establishment was doomed to fail. Therefore, under these circumstances, she did not want to waste Lu Changsheng's foundation establishment elixir and owe him a favor. Concentrate on your foundation establishment. Despite Xiao Xia's resistance, Lu Changsheng insisted, slapping his hand down. He pushed the foundation establishment elixir directly into Xiao Xia's mouth. While the elixir was precious, in his view, things were made to be used. Given Xiao Xia's precarious situation, if the elixir could stabilize matters, he certainly wouldn't hold back. Otherwise, if Xiao Xia failed her foundation establishment, he would feel uneasy about it. Boom! As the foundation establishment elixir entered her stomach, Xiao Xia immediately felt the power of the medicine increasing the spiritual pressure around her, accelerating the conversion and absorption of the surrounding spiritual energy. As she watched Lu Changsheng crush the middle-grade spirit stones one by one, she pressed her lips together, sighed softly in her heart, and closed her eyes to concentrate on foundation establishment. Thinking of breaking ties with me that easily? Not so simple. Thinking you could leave before birthing 3 children. Lu Changsheng clearly understood Xiao Xia's thoughts. Her affection for him was probably genuine, as was her desire to repay him for his assistance in cultivation and saving her life, thereby untangling their relationship. In such a case, how could Lu Changsheng simply let go? Who in the world is undergoing foundation establishment? The amount of spiritual energy they're drawing in is terrifying. Looking at this, foundation establishment should have ended by now, so why is it still continuing? This is going to affect the spiritual energy in our area. Could it be that this person is condensing the legendary perfect foundation base? Even with a perfect foundation base, the amount of spiritual energy involved wouldn't be this massive, nor continue for so long, right? The cultivators near Core Peak, looking at the vortex of spiritual energy swirling above, were bewildered with amazement and confusion. What's happening? The vortex of spiritual energy above Shiyu Junior Sister's cave abode is still swirling, and the spiritual pressure is starting to rise again. That vortex of spiritual energy weakened just a moment ago, with a faint rosy glow spreading through it, evidence that someone had succeeded in foundation establishment. If that's the case, why is the spiritual pressure rising again as if someone is forming their Tao foundation anew? Could it be 2 people are attempting foundation establishment simultaneously? Inside Cave Abode E, a young man looked toward the not-too-distant Cave Abode Jia, where a vortex of spiritual energy swirled above the sky, and frowned slightly. Report to Master Du, this number 9 Jia Cave Abode is rented by Fairy Shiyu of Kaiyun Peak, the steward at the Cave Abode rental place said to the gray-robed elder in front of him, with a face showing signs of age and a hint of the demeanor of an immortal, speaking respectfully. Kaiyun Peak, Xiao Xie. This elder was the false core immortal stationed at Qingyun Market. Seeing this unusual activity of spiritual energy, he also came to inquire who was undergoing foundation establishment. After all, the commotion of this foundation establishment was indeed a bit too large. Were it not for Qingyun Market having a large spirit vein, and that core peak spirit vein reached 2nd rank top grade, such intense activity of spiritual energy could affect the operation of the marketplace's great formation. Yes, Immortal. At that time, Fairy Shiyu was renting the cave abode along with a close friend and indicated it would be used for a realm breakthrough, stated the steward respectfully, without concealing anything. Although his cultivation level was only Qi refinement, having served as a steward in Qingyun Market for many years, he had seen many people attempt foundation establishment. He had a rough guess about the situation based on the abnormality of the spiritual energy and knowing that Xiao Xie had rented the cave abode with another person. Chapter 314, the idea of establishing one's own family. Master Du nodded slightly upon hearing this. He roughly understood that Xiao Xia came to Qingyun Market for her foundation establishment with a close friend. Otherwise, given Xiao Xia's situation, there was no need for her to come to the Qingyun Market for her foundation establishment. After understanding the situation, he didn't continue to inquire further. He transformed into a rainbow light and departed. And he ordered that no one should approach this cave dwelling, to avoid disturbing the situation inside. Time slowly passed. No one knew how much time had gone by. The vortex of nature's spiritual energy above the cave dwelling gradually dissipated, with faint colored clouds permeating the air. It's done. In the bedroom, Lu Chongqing looked at the enticingly beautiful jade-like body of Xiao Xia before him. Seeing the foundation establishment's spiritual pressure surging around her, he immediately knew that Xiao Xia's foundation establishment had been successful. A look of joy appeared on his face too. After all, he had worried because the deficiency of nature's spiritual energy had been caused by him. He feared that Xiao Xia's foundation establishment might fail. However, just at that moment, a crack sound came from within Xiao Xia's body. Pfft! Xiao Xia spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Shiyu, what's wrong with you? Lu Chongqing, seeing Xiao Xia vomiting blood, was taken aback and immediately supported her, asking with concern. He didn't know what was going on with her. Why would she vomit blood and have her qi in disorder just after completing her foundation establishment? Fine, Xiao Xia's beautiful eyes opened, revealing a complicated expression. Her supreme forgetful love technique had succeeded, yet it hadn't. Or rather, under Lu Changsheng's influence, her state of mind ultimately wasn't perfect, there was a flaw. This caused her newly established perfect Tao foundation to crack at the base due to the flaw in her state of mind. A vast amount of spiritual energy leaked out from the crack in the foundation base, overflowing from her body. You're in this state and still you say you're fine, Lu Chongqing retorted with slight annoyance. He immediately grabbed Xiao Xia's wrist, preparing to check her physical condition. Normally, such close contact between cultivators to check each other's condition was considered rash. But over the past year, Lu Chongqing and Xiao Xia had become very close. At this time, he naturally didn't care about such rashness or gender differences. Just as he grabbed Xiao Xia's wrist, Lu Chongqing sensed her body undergoing a transformation under the purification of the foundation base. But at the same time, spiritual energy was leaking out. Because my state of mind wasn't perfect, my Tao foundation became damaged, Xiao Xia said softly, pursing her lips and speaking in a low voice as she saw the slightly angry look on Lu Changsheng's face, choosing not to hide it anymore. Maybe it was the flaw in her state of mind that made her less aloof when facing Lu Chongqing. The foundation base is damaged. Lu Chongqing furrowed his brow slightly upon hearing this. He immediately sent a strand of his divine sense into Xiao Xia's body. Xiao Xia did not resist Lu Changsheng's actions. Instantly, Lu Changsheng's divine sense accessed the brilliantly shining foundational base in Xiao Xia's dantian. The foundational base was moon-white in its entirety. In the center of the base, a faint cyan moon circulated. It was Xiao Xia's supreme and mysterious moon Tao foundation. But at this moment, this perfect jade-like moon-white foundation base had a clear crack from which spiritual energy was leaking out. Even with a crack, Shiyu, your foundational base is still considered a perfect one, Lu Chongqing reassured her. I wonder if my yin-yang energies can repair this crack. Lu Chongqing, observing the obvious crack on the foundation base, thought of his yin-yang energies. It seemed somewhat fortuitous in his heart. He had just condensed the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base. The yin-yang energies of the foundational base could repair and refine the base. And now, the exact problem Xiao Xia's base had was a crack in her perfect foundation, not an innate flaw. Don't worry, just complete your rebirth and solidify your cultivation level. I have a way to repair your foundation. Lu Chongqing withdrew his divine sense, exhaling gently and saying to Xiao Xie. Using yin-yang energies to repair and refine a foundational base was his secret, not to be divulged to outsiders. But as Xiao Xie was his consort, Lu Chongqing naturally would not keep it concealed. Moreover, he was eager to see how effective his yin-yang energies were. Repair the foundational base. Xiao Xie's typically cold and pale face showed a trace of surprise. She did not expect Lu Chongqing to say he could repair her foundational base. She was clearly aware that the heaven and earth treasures capable of fixing a foundational base were exceedingly rare. Furthermore, her foundation base was a perfect one, cracked due to flaws in her state of mind and cultivation technique, making it incredibly difficult to mend. But at that moment, as her foundational base pulsated within her body, undergoing transformation, she didn't give it much thought and simply nodded slightly, collecting her mental spirit and closed her eyes again to begin the marrow cleansing after the consolidation of the foundation base and her rebirth. Seeing Xiao Xie closing her eyes again, Lu Chongqing started to regulate his breath in meditation, solidifying his cultivation level. At the time, he had just had a breakthrough, and due to Xiao Xie's situation, he had been too preoccupied to solidify his cultivation level. So the cave-dwelling returned to a state of silence. In the blink of an eye, half a month went by. Phew! Lu Chongqing opened his eyes and exhaled lightly. Having solidified his cultivation level over half a month, he felt his aura become calm and settled. After his breakthrough to the foundation establishment stage, not only his cultivation level but also his physical body and presence had become more easily concealed. Unless he engaged in battle, it would be difficult for others to discern his level. Could this jade pendant be a unique treasure after all? That it can prevent even a foundation establishment cultivator from discerning the depth at a glance. As Lu Chongqing observed his own aura, he discovered that the jade pendant given to him by that nascent soul female cultivator still had the effect of concealing his aura, to the point that he himself couldn't fully discern it. Now that I have established my foundation, if I wanted, I could probably go live off a woman's resources. Chapter 315, The Idea of Establishing One's Own Family. Lu Chongqing chuckled inwardly. He remembered that after he achieved the foundation establishment stage, the nascent soul female cultivator had said she would give him an opportunity. Although she hadn't specified what the opportunity was, he could guess its nature. However, Lu Chongqing had no such intentions in his heart. He, Lu Chongqing, had reached this point through his tireless efforts, day and night. Why would he cling to someone's coattails or live off others? Moreover, he was aware that, as a nascent soul immortal, she would definitely not bear his children. In such a case, one couldn't be as comfortable as when at home, with a wife and children around a warm stove. No, what's sweeter is living off one's own efforts, step by step. System. Watching Xiao Xie still meditating with her eyes closed, Lu Chongqing silently uttered in his mind. A system interface appeared before his eyes. Name, Lu Chongqing. Status, son-in-law of the Lu family of Qingzhou Mountain. Cultivation level, foundation establishment first layer, lifespan, 32/269, talent, 5th grade spiritual root, Gingjin body constitution, medium grade spiritual body, cultivation techniques, 100 refinements treasure body art, 7 luminaries great freedom sword scripture, yin-yang harmony technique. Immortal beauty technique, spells, 7 luminaries sword light, 7 luminaries sword shield, 7 luminary sword escape, items, 9 treasure jade rui, golden light brick talisman treasure, black dragon magical bead, book of malevolent curses and fates, life substituting talisman, profound origin bead, 2nd rank puppet, skills, talisman making, 2nd rank, puppet, 2nd rank, spirit slaughterer, 2nd rank, spiritual pets, 9 netherhound, peach blossom goo, 6-winged golden silkworm, offspring, 115 of 117, lifespan has increased by 109 years. Is it because of the perfect foundation base? Lu Chongqing examined the changes in his lifespan record. Normally, breaking through from energy refinement to foundation establishment increases one's lifespan by 100 years. This lifespan can fluctuate according to the cultivation method practiced or the condition of the body. For someone like him, practicing a sword scripture and having increased his lifespan by 109 years upon breaking through to foundation establishment, is already quite exceptional. At the age of 32, although not the pinnacle, foundation establishment is still the first step on the ladder. However, I should still keep my cultivation level hidden from the public eye as much as possible and bide my time for some years. Otherwise, as a mere 9th grade spiritual root son-in-law of the Lu family, having reached foundation establishment at 32, I will surely attract the wrong kind of attention and trouble. Lu Chongqing murmured to himself, considering his current age. In the cultivation world, there's never a shortage of lucky ones who get an opportunity and manage to reach foundation establishment by chance. However, such lucky ones do not necessarily continue to be fortunate. Once his cultivation level is exposed, there's a high chance of attracting trouble. Therefore, unless necessary, Lu Chongqing plans to maintain the appearance of an energy-refining cultivator. Regarding children, I've fallen behind over the years. I need to catch up earnestly now. Lu Chongqing then turned his attention to his offspring record. In the last few years, due to various reasons such as outstanding childbirth and Xiao Xia's cultivation, childbearing was delayed, increasing the count by only 11 children. And my children are growing up and need to start cultivating, so I should really focus on that. Lu Chongqing thought about his eldest son, Lu Xianji, who had already completed taking in qi. Initially, he had put some thought into Lu Xianji. But as the number of children increased and he became busier, he barely provided guidance. For instance, he wouldn't have known about Lu Xianji completing the qi intake if not for the system notification. With a thought, Lu Xianzi's information appeared. Name, Lu Xianji, lifespan, December 89, talent, 9th grade spiritual root, cultivation level, qi refinement first layer, alas, 9th grade spiritual root. Lu Chongqing sighed softly upon seeing his son's spiritual root grade. As someone who had risen from a 9th grade to a 5th grade spiritual root, he understood the gap between the different grades of spiritual roots only too well. His son, without significant opportunities, had little chance past energy refinement late stage. But being my son is a great opportunity in itself. Once I possess the strength to establish my own family spirit land, with the heavenly longevity technique, even core formation or nascent soul stages are within reach. Lu Chongqing exhaled lightly. He again considered the matter of establishing his own family. Having spent so many years on Qingzhou Mountain, and with a wife and children, he certainly felt somewhat at home there. Indeed, he counted Qingzhou Mountain as half his home. However, he never ceased to consider establishing his own cultivation family independently. After all, Lu Chongqing never truly considered himself entirely a part of the Lu family, he merely saw Qingzhou Mountain as half his home. Therefore, his children, as per his arrangements, hadn't completely integrated into the Lu family either. Because Lu Chongqing was acutely aware that in the future, he and his children were destined to walk a path different from the Lu families. If he remained with the Lu family, as his strength increased, he would probably become the Lu family ancestor and take control of the family. But Lu Chongqing had no such wish. Becoming the Lu family ancestor and taking charge would mean assuming a responsibility. And he didn't want to shoulder that responsibility. His own children, he was willing to put in the effort, energy, and resources to cultivate each one of them. Even if they had 9th grade spiritual roots, he was willing to spend the time, energy, and resources. But he couldn't possibly do the same for the Lu family disciples. And if he stayed with the Lu family, becoming their ancestor, he couldn't simply ignore family matters. So, in Lu Chongqing's view, taking his children to establish their own family clan was the best choice. He wouldn't forget about the Lu family either. Once capable, he would provide whatever assistance he could afford to help them. After all, a favor of a drop of water should be repaid with a spring of water. Moreover, considering his current relationship with the Liu family, it was impossible for him to sever ties completely. Chapter 3:16, Family Spirit Land, Repair the Tao Foundation. _1 Now that I've achieved foundation establishment, I can consider establishing a family clan. Liu Changsheng's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts about establishing a family clan. In the world of cultivation, the strength of foundation establishment couldn't be considered very high. However, it was enough to preside over a region and establish a cultivation family. As with the Liu family of Qingzhou Mountain and many surrounding families, once foundation establishment was achieved, one would become the ancestral elder of the family. To establish a cultivation family, the first thing needed is a spiritual vein blessed land. Without a spirit land, talking about establishing a family is nothing but a joke. Over the years, Liu Changxing had learned quite a bit about family affairs. He knew a few basic ways to acquire a spirit land. The first method was the simplest and most direct. It was to seize and occupy others' spirit lands by force. This kind of thing was not uncommon in the cultivation world. However, few who chose to establish family forces did so. One reason was, if not done thoroughly, it left the possibility of future troubles. Another was that seizing spirit lands without cause and establishing a family greatly affected one's reputation and credibility. And morally it was indefensible, easily drawing the condemnation and even aggression from other cultivators and forces. After all, if you are alone, you can disregard the rules. But when you establish a family and have dependents, you need to consider your reputation and the family standing. If you act without rules and are too overbearing, leading to a poor reputation, it's not only likely to cause trouble, but also could result in other cultivators and family forces being unwilling to associate with you. In the cultivation world, most who choose to establish family forces do so because they have no hope in cultivation. Therefore, they transfer their time and energy to cultivating successors, aiming for the stable development of the family's foundation. If a family force is established through forceful occupation and as a result gains a bad reputation, it is bound to hinder the family's development. For instance, when the Liu family and the Bai family attacked Red Leaf Valley, they had a justified cause, holding grievances that stretched over decades. The Yu family and the Jing family would also find a reason or pretext when they came to take their share. Therefore, seizing others' spirit lands by force was not considered by Liu Changxing. He couldn't bring himself to seize others' spirit lands without reason. Of course, if any thoughtless family offended him and forced his hand, he wouldn't mind doing so. The second way to obtain a spirit land was to clear and develop it oneself. Although spirit veins were scarce in the cultivation world, it was still possible to find some unclaimed ones. However, most such spirit veins were located in places with poor terrain or harsh environments. Or they were surrounded by numerous and very dangerous demon beasts. So if one was willing to spend time and effort, it was still possible to find a spirit vein and cultivate it into a spirit land. But this option, too, was not considered by Liu Changxing. First of all, he had a general idea about the future development of his family. With his puppets, talisman making, spirit slaughterer, and skills obtained from future draws, he intended to train his children in artisanal trades. By mastering these skills, his family would have a stable source of income. Therefore, he had certain requirements for the geographical environment. If the environment was too remote or too poor, and there were too few cultivators and marketplaces around, it would definitely be inconvenient for doing business. Secondly, to find a suitable spirit vein and to develop it into a spirit land would also require a great deal of time and effort. It could take many years or even decades. So this path was completely out of Liu Changsheng's consideration. The third way was to purchase or rent a spirit land with money. Some cultivation families, facing decline or a break in lineage, would choose to sell or almost give away their family spirit lands. However, such spirit lands were usually not of high quality. If Lu Chongqing were willing, he could easily take over a first-grade spirit vein. But to cultivate a first-grade spirit vein into a second-grade would consume too much time and resources, so it was not considered by Lu Chongqing. Immortal sects like Heavenly Sword Sect, Qingyun Sect, Wuxia Sect, and Spirit Taming Sect all had several second-grade spiritual vein dojos with excellent environment and geographical location. These spirit lands, besides being used to establish cultivation marketplaces, also had some available for rent or sale. If I could purchase a spirit land within the jurisdiction of Qingyun Sect, that would be a fine choice. However, most of these spiritual vein dojos are only rented out, seldom sold. Even when they are up for sale, not everyone is qualified to buy them. Moreover, the price of a spiritual vein dojo is astronomically high, beyond what I can currently afford. Lu Chongqing shook his head slightly, not dwelling on this matter. With his current worth, it wasn't easy to establish a family clan from nothing. After all, a family clan is something that accumulates over generations. If he wanted to complete in a short time what others have achieved over several generations, it would naturally cost him exponentially more. However, he wasn't in a hurry to establish a family clan. He planned to wait until his children were older. The most urgent task at hand is to accumulate a foundation. In a few years, when I can reasonably reveal my strength at foundation establishment, I'll consider the matter of establishing a family clan. By that time, my 100 or so children should have grown up and will be able to share the burdens of this old father. Otherwise, even with a family spirit land and the establishment of my own family, I would be faced with a lack of manpower and would need to do everything personally. Lu Chongqing was very clear in his heart. To establish a family clan, a spirit land was only the basic condition. With the spirit land secured, one would at least need a family great formation, right? Such large-scale formations couldn't be managed with just a set of formation tools. Chapter 317, Family Spirit Land, Repair the Tao Foundation. An array master is necessary for the setup. As for the great formation of his own family, Lu Chongqing truly did not feel assured to let others handle its arrangement. Moreover, such large-scale formations, even ordinary second-rank formations, are exceedingly expensive. With the formation's protection, it's necessary to sort the earth veins, develop the spirit fields, and the medicinal fields. Then planting the spiritual medicines in the spirit fields, the envisioned puppet factory, nurturing spiritual beasts, all require substantial financial investment and people to do the work. It's feasible to recruit outsiders, servants, to work. But core matters must be kept in the hands of our own people. At present, aside from his wives and concubines, his eldest son, Lu Pingan, is only 13 years old. And since Lu Pingan does not have a spiritual root, he cannot do many things, which must be done only by offspring with spiritual roots. Lu Chongqing was very clear about all this in his heart. He knew that establishing a family from nothing, regardless of the cost, or human and mental effort, would be tremendous and require extensive preparation. Even with a system at his disposal, it wouldn't be easy for one person to traverse in a few years or over a decade what others take over 100 years to accomplish. However, had it not been for the blessings of many children granted by the system, Lu Chongqing would not have even thought about establishing a family. After all, creating a family is like planting trees for future generations to enjoy the shade. In the early stages, it's all toil with little return. Moreover, most often, the founders don't live to see the benefits and conveniences of the family. However, for me, it's just about getting through the initial stage, he said to himself. After all, as long as the children are well, this father will be content. Once the family gets on the right track and carries on from generation to generation, this old father, this ancestor, can also relax and live leisurely. Lu Chongqing was also aware that he differed from other family founders. Most of them turned to building a family only when they saw no hope in cultivation. Whereas his focus was on stability and a promising future where every effort would be rewarded. At this moment, Lu Chongqing turned to look at Xiao Xie, whose eyelashes trembled slightly as her eyes slowly opened. He immediately asked with concern, "Xiyu, you're awake?" "Chongqing." Xiao Xie had a breakthrough in her foundation establishment, completing a metamorphosis. Her skin, previously as pure as ice and snow, now seemed to flow with faint moonlight, making her entire person appear even more coldly sacred and pure. Supreme Forgetful Love Technique, First Level, Yun Wuqing, Wei Wuqing. Looking at Lu Chongqing in front of her, Xiao Xie had complicated feelings. Initially, she thought that Yun stood for men and Yu for women. Clouds and moons sit millions of miles apart, unrelated to each other, so clouds are heartless, and so is the moon. But her master, Yun Wanshang, told her that clouds carry the light of the moon and cast the reflection of colorful clouds on the earth. To those on earth, it seemed as if the moon rested in the clouds, with the clouds embracing the moon, coexisting in interdependence. Thus, supreme forgetful love means one must experience emotion to reach heartlessness. However, with her breakthrough in the supreme forgetful love technique, she gained new insight. Clouds and moon intertwined, with the clouds surrounding the moon and the moon illuminating the clouds, both distant and close. One cold and quiet, the other ethereal and unpredictable, both heartless by nature, hence cloud heartless, moon heartless. "It turns out I was wrong from the beginning, and so was Master," Xiao Xie murmured to herself. From the start of their cultivation, both she and Lu Chongqing had no emotions. That is, they had desire but no feelings, aligning with the state of cloud heartless, moon heartless. But as her cultivation progressed, she became increasingly entangled, possessed by both desire and emotions. Although it was a mistake, she also knew that supreme forgetful love, in the end, is all about being heartless, without emotions, cutting away those threads of sentiment. So, when together with Lu Chongqing, they had both desire and emotion. When alone, she would cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique to achieve a state of no desire, no emotions. Yet during the impact of foundation establishment, she was ultimately unable to sever her emotions completely and achieve heartlessness. But because Lu Chongqing was by her side, she had both desire and emotions when it mattered, and in the end, she succeeded in her foundation establishment, though her Tao foundation was damaged. So what does the second level mean with its cloud has sentiment, and moon has sentiment? Xiao Xie thought about the state of mind necessary for the second level of the supreme forgetful love technique. This related to whether she could reach core formation. Although her Tao foundation was damaged, with cracks making core formation seem distant, she was not going to give up on herself. "Xiyu, how are you feeling? Are you alright?" Lu Chongqing looked at Xiao Xie, who had just opened her eyes, then stared blankly at him, and he inquired. "I'm fine," Xiao Xie replied, shaking her head lightly. She could feel that whenever she faced Lu Chongqing, her state of mind couldn't truly achieve calmness, supreme forgetful love. Then, with a wave of her hand, she clothed herself in moon-white lingerie, undergarments, and a skirt. Despite their intimacy. But the thought of her own breakthrough process, having been undressed the entire time, made Xiao Xie somewhat shy. "Xiyu, now that you're fine, let's see if I can repair your Tao foundation," Lu Chongqing said, looking at Xiao Xie, who had donned her skirt, her long hair casually falling down to her waist, the contrast of black and white naturally bearing a celestial essence without any pretense. "Repair Tao foundation." Xiao Xie looked towards Lu Chongqing, still somewhat incredulous. After all, such a notion was astounding. "Yes, the Tao foundation I gathered during foundation establishment is called the Yin-Yang 5 Elements Foundation Base, and this Yin-Yang Qi." Lu Chongqing did not conceal anything and revealed the effect of his Tao foundation to Xiao Xie. Upon hearing this, Xiao Xie's beautiful eyes showed a hint of surprise, seemingly astonished that such a foundation base existed. At the same time, her creamy cheeks instantly flushed a shade of red. She had read many books about foundation establishment. She knew about many perfect foundations. But she had never heard of such a foundation as Lu Changsheng's. Putting aside the fact that the effects of this foundation were too extraordinary. The method of repairing the foundation, which required dual cultivation, made her feel as if Lu Changsheng was pulling a fast one on her. Shiyu, don't you trust me? Looking at Xiao Xia's silence, her cold eyes displaying a touch of disbelief, Lu Changsheng immediately spoke up. Chapter 318, Family Spirit Land, Repair the Tao Foundation. I naturally trust you, Xiao Xia said softly, her luscious lips gently pressing together. Though she said so, her heart still harbored doubts about such effects on the Tao Foundation. However, thinking that she would soon return to Qingyun sect, she sighed softly and complied with Lu Changsheng's request. Lu Changsheng could tell that Xiao Xia still had some disbelief. He immediately wanted to prove through his actions that he, Lu Changsheng, was a man of integrity. He would not fabricate such a lie just out of lust. Soon, a rustling sound emerged, accompanied by a soft, cold whimper. The symphony of a grand life harmony began to play. Who knows how much time had passed? Huff! As the yin-yang energies entered Xiao Xia's body, Lu Changsheng let out a long breath. He embraced the sweat-drenched Xiao Xia and extended his divine sense into her body. To see how the yin-yang energies were repairing and purifying the Tao Foundation. After all, he knew of it, but this was his first attempt. Moreover, Xiao Xia's situation was somewhat unique. He saw the yin-yang energies transform into a yin-yang fish, entering Xiao Xia's qi ocean core. They swirled around her supreme yin profound moon Tao Foundation. During the process, a faint yin-yang qi diffused over the cracks of the Tao platform. Shiyu, how is it, do you feel any effect? Lu Changsheng asked after observing for a while. He could tell that the yin-yang energies should be repairing and purifying the Tao Foundation, but there were no apparent changes to the cracks on the platform. He could not discern whether the Tao platform was benefiting from the yin-yang energies' purification. Xiao Xia propped up her soft, powerless body with some effort, her porcelain skin flushed with a hint of pink. With her hand gently caressing her slightly swollen lower abdomen, she closed her eyes to sense the changes in her Tao platform. In this moment, she could clearly feel that under the nourishment of these yin-yang energies, her Tao platform was indeed being repaired. What astonished her even more was that these yin-yang energies resonated with her supreme yin profound moon Tao Foundation, giving her the faint sense that, with enough yin-yang energies, not only would her Tao Foundation be repaired but it might also undergo some kind of transformation. Changsheng, the effect of these yin-yang energies made Xiao Xia's heart flutter. Her stunning face lifted to look at Lu Changsheng, at a loss for words for a moment. With a gap in her Tao heart, her Tao Foundation was damaged, leaving her inner world not at peace. Now, seeing that her Tao Foundation could indeed be repaired and perhaps even further improved, her heart was tumultuous with emotion. Shiyu, how is it? I didn't deceive you, did I? Seeing Xiao Xia's reaction, Lu Changsheng immediately knew the yin-yang energies were effective. He snorted lightly, slightly annoyed, and pinched her delicate skin playfully. He could see that Xiao Xia hadn't really believed he could repair the Tao Foundation before. Lu Lang, she was wrong, Xiao Xia voiced sweetly, her eyes brimming with moisture as she nestled against Lu Changsheng's chest. She was a little less aloof and a little more fragile. Normally, her use of the supreme forgetful love technique allowed her to maintain a tranquil mind, undisturbed by emotions. But their recent dual cultivation had nearly nullified the supreme forgetful love technique. And she didn't operate the technique to suppress her emotions. She even prevented the supreme forgetful love technique from activating automatically. It was as if she had a subtle revelation about the second layer of the supreme forgetful love technique. Clouds have affections, the moon holds affection. The moon, accompanied by the clouds, shone even more brightly. The clouds, illuminated by the moon, appeared even more vibrant and graceful. If she stood on the ground and looked up, admiring how the two complemented each other. It would result in the creation of a beautiful scenery, just like a painting of the clear blue sky. It's good that you understand your mistake. How do you think this effect is? Approximately how many times will it take to repair the cracks in your Dao foundation? Lu Chongqing, using his divine sense to observe, could tell that this kind of thing wasn't going to be fixed in 1 or 2 tries, it's going to take several sessions. Possibly dozens of times. Xiao Xia's cheeks were slightly flushed as she gave an estimate. Thinking of this number meant accepting the number of times she'd have to engage in dual cultivation with Lu Chongqing, which made her hang her head in shyness. She had actually been planning to return to the Qingyun sect. But how could she return if she had to repair her Dao foundation? Dozens of times. Upon hearing this, Lu Changsheng's eyebrows raised slightly. The yin-yang energies he possessed were not simply mana, but the essence of the human body. After each use, they had to be slowly replenished through cultivation. The yin-yang energies he had just expended would likely take about 10 days to a half-month to recuperate. If it was going to take 50 times for Xiao Xia's foundation to be restored, it meant that it would take about 1 to 2 years. For cultivators, 1 to 2 years to repair a crack in the foundation is naturally not considered a long time. Chongqing, your yin-yang energies not only repair the Dao foundation but also resonate with mine, Xiao Xia continued to speak. She discussed the effects of the yin-yang energies on her foundation. There's such an effect. Lu Chongqing was also somewhat surprised. He really didn't know that his yin-yang energies had such an effect. If his yin-yang energies could further improve a perfect foundation, that would be too heaven-defying. Wait a minute, could this effect be because, at the time my 7 lamps foundation advanced to the yin-yang 5 elements foundation, it merged with Shiyu's great yin moon essence? After all, this great yin moon essence and Shiyu share the same origin, so maybe that's why my yin-yang energies have an extra effect on Shiyu's foundation. Lu Chongqing speculated in his mind. He felt that if it could also upgrade a perfect foundation, it would be too heaven-defying. He then shared his speculation with Xiao Xia. Xiao Xia was also somewhat astonished after hearing this. She hadn't expected that Lu Changsheng's yin-yang energies were formed by her own great yin moon essence and the great sun essence. However, she was also unclear about this situation. After all, her understanding of foundations was limited. Shiyu, approximately how many times before your foundation can undergo a transformation? Lu Chongqing asked again. I don't know either. Xiao Xia shook her head gently. She could only feel the resonance of the yin-yang energies in the process of repairing her foundation. It made her feel that under the nourishment of the yin-yang energies, her foundation would undergo a certain change. No worries, with persistent effort even an iron rod can be ground to a needle. Shiyu, rest assured, I will definitely repair your foundation and help you take it a step further. Lu Chongqing spoke with deep affection, his tone growing firmer and more sincere. Xiao Xia, with Lu Changsheng's gesture, lifted her chin slightly, her cheeks blushing, and softly hummed in approval. By the way, Shiyu, I have a cultivation technique that's not only beneficial for cultivation but might also be useful for repairing the foundation. Lu Chongqing thought of his tender embrace technique and mentioned it to Xiao Xia. He also wanted to try out another effect of his foundation. Chapter 319. If you feel bad about it, have a few children. _1 Several days later, the sky cleared up, and the rain ceased. Poof! Lu Chongqing flipped over and rose to his feet. He took out 3 elixir medicines and swallowed them, holding 2 spirit stones in his hand. He sat cross-legged in cultivation, absorbing and devouring copious amounts of pure spiritual energy. In the next moment, within the sea of qi in his dantian, a drop of liquid mana formed, resembling 7-colored glazed glass. It merged into the multicolored Dan Lake, making the Dan Lake ripple gently, growing slightly in size. Phew, this effect is simply astonishing. But it seems the dual cultivation with Shiyu also has an enhancing effect. Lu Chongqing was somewhat astonished and amazed just to have condensed a drop of liquid mana by himself. From qi refinement to the breakthrough of foundation establishment, he had condensed a total of 100 drops of liquid mana within his Dan Lake. Once the total amount of liquid mana reached 150 drops, he could attempt the second level of foundation establishment. Lu Chongqing had not expected that just a few days of dual cultivation with Xiao Xie would directly condense a drop of liquid mana. This speed was truly astonishing. Based on my current speed of cultivation, it takes roughly 2 months to condense a single drop of liquid mana. So these days of dual cultivation are about the same as 2 months of arduous cultivation for me. Lu Chongqing calculated in his heart. Previously, his days of dual cultivation with Lu Miaoge amounted to at most half a month's worth of arduous cultivation. But with Xiao Xie, it was comparable to 2 full months of arduous cultivation. This led Lu Chongqing to speculate that it wasn't just the yin-yang 5 elements foundation base that enhanced dual cultivation. It was also the added benefit from dual cultivating with Xiao Xie. However, he wasn't greedy. The mana cultivated in this manner ultimately wasn't as consolidated as that which he cultivated steadily and methodically. It required time to stabilize. Otherwise, it would result in a weak foundation. So it was something to indulge in occasionally, a fun activity between husband and wife cultivators. But now that I'm at foundation establishment, I can condense the 7 luminaries heart lamp, which not only purges elixir toxicity and guards my mental spirit, but also has the effect of burning nature's spiritual energy, speeding up cultivation, solidifying mana, and strengthening my foundation. So occasionally indulging a little shouldn't be a problem. Lu Chongqing also thought about the 7 luminaries heart lamp he had been yearning for. This heart lamp not only aided in cultivation but also possessed combat capabilities. It could enhance his combat power at the foundation establishment stage. Sigh. At that moment, Xiao Xie also opened her eyes from her meditation, and her clear beautiful eyes overflowed with tender affection as they looked towards Lu Chongqing. The tender embrace technique was certainly not an energy drain technique. It was a superior dual cultivation technique. Not only beneficial for Lu Chongqing but also for Xiao Xie. Especially the past several days of dual cultivation, which allowed Xiao Xie to gain a deeper understanding of the second level of supreme forgetful love technique. Clouds have emotions, moon has emotions. Shiyu, have I broken your supreme forgetful love technique again? Lu Chongqing looked at Xiao Xie, whose face was full of gentle love, took her into his arms, and teasingly said. He also knew that Xiao Xie's supreme forgetful love technique would make the practitioner emotionless and indifferent as they cultivated further into it. Even though he didn't want her to end up like that, seeing that Xiao Xie regained her bright and soft demeanor after breaking through foundation establishment, he couldn't help feeling worried. Worried that, besides her Dao foundation, some other problems arose in her cultivation. Yes, in front of Lu Lang, how can Shiyu adhere to supreme forgetfulness? Xiao Xie spoke faintly. Yet a hint of deep affection shimmered in her eyes. It was exactly this thread of affection that had compromised her Dao foundation. And after completing foundation establishment, as the two of them continued to dual cultivate, this thread of affection began to spread anew within her heart. She did not suppress these feelings, allowing them to spread and ferment. Lu Chongqing noticed Xiao Xie's demeanor and knew that she should be all right. Immediately, he pinched her cheek and chuckled, in that case, does Shiyu have to cultivate by my side for a lifetime? Yes, if Shiyu can never break through supreme forgetfulness, then I'll have to cultivate by Lu Lang's side for a lifetime, Xiao Xie playfully responded in a seemingly light-hearted manner. But her heart skipped a beat. Understanding that if the second layer of supreme forgetful love technique, clouds have emotions, moon has emotions, is as she surmised, then breaking through this layer and advancing further would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Although she harbored feelings for Lu Chongqing, she also couldn't let go of her aspiration towards the Tao. Since Shiyu feels this way, then it's fine not to cultivate that supreme forgetfulness. Lu Chongqing stated. Although the supreme forgetful love technique is powerful, he saw its side effects as too significant. Hearing this, Xiaoxia's eyes lowered, and her lips quivered as she bit her lip. For a moment, she fell silent. The Supreme Forgetful Love technique was not like other cultivation techniques that could be readily changed. Especially now that she had broken through to foundation establishment, to switch her practice would mean starting all over from scratch. And she was unwilling to give up this Supreme Forgetful Love technique. Because it was only through cultivating this technique that she might be able to travel farther on the path of immortality and see a broader world. I was just saying it casually, Shiyu, don't take it to heart. Besides, I believe that there are always ways to have the best of both worlds, Lu Chongqing said, seeing Xiaoxia in such a state, and spoke gently. He knew techniques like the Supreme Forgetful Love technique represented the foundation of the Tao for Xiaoxia, and his words had clearly put Xiaoxia in a difficult position of choosing between her emotions and cultivation. This understanding made him empathetic, and he did not wish to pressure her, believing that in the future, he would find a way that could accommodate both. Chongqing. I'm sorry, Xiaoxia said softly, her voice trembling slightly. Not only did she love Lu Chongqing, but she also felt a profound sense of guilt towards him. The more understanding and accommodating Lu Chongqing was, the guiltier she felt. Because she was acutely aware that her affection for Lu Chongqing was not pure, and now it also encompassed the intention to use his cultivation for her own benefit. In such circumstances, Lu Chongqing continued to support her, providing foundation establishment elixirs and helping repair and refine her Tao foundation without seeking anything in return. Her guilt weighed heavily on her. Chapter 320. If you feel bad about it, have a few children, there's no need for apologies between us. If you truly feel uneasy in your heart, Shiyu, and one day you manage to break through the supreme level of detachment and have to leave, then have a few children for me. As a remembrance of our relationship, let me look upon the children and be reminded of you. Lu Chongqing said this half-jokingly. Have children. When Xiaoxia heard these words, her heart trembled slightly, she became briefly lost in thought, and her face revealed a blush of shyness. Having spent so much time with Lu Chongqing, she naturally knew how fond he was of children. But she had never considered the matter of having children. Or rather, most cultivators, unless they see no hope in their path of cultivation, even if they have partners, do not think about having children. Especially someone like Xiaoxia, who was at the prime age for vigorous advancement in cultivation, with a bright future ahead, would think even less about having children. Now that Lu Chongqing had brought it up, Xiaoxia couldn't help but genuinely ponder the idea. She thought about having a child for Lu Chongqing. That way, when she left, someone would still be there to keep him company. But the thought of childbirth scared her inexplicably. She remembered hearing as a child that childbirth was like passing through the gates of hell. She also thought about how, if she had a child and she wasn't around, the child would be motherless and might be bullied by others. For a moment, Xiaoxia's heart raced and her thoughts were in turmoil. Shiyu, what are you thinking about? You're not considering what we're going to name our kids in the future, are you? Seeing Xiaoxia's blush and her thoughtful, conflicted expression, Lu Chongqing laughed softly. Although he suggested that Xiaoxia have children, it was mostly a preventive measure, tilting more towards a joke. After all, she does have a core formation master. He dared not truly plan to cajole someone else's disciple into having children. Who said I would have children for you? Xiaoxia looked at Lu Chongqing's teasing, half-smiling expression, spat lightly, and showed a bit of girlish moodiness. She pounded her little fist on Lu Chongqing's chest, saying one thing while meaning another. Watching the fairy behave in such a manner, Lu Chongqing shouted "I-oh" in amusement. Then the two of them were affectionate for a while. Shiyu, I plan to buy some items in the Qingyun market and then return to Qingzhou Mountain. Are you going back to the Red Leaf Valley market with me, or? Lu Chongqing asked. Cultivating together with Xiaoxia in the Qingyun market, life was undoubtedly pleasant. But after all, he had a family. At home, there were a bunch of wives and children. This trip had already lasted over 5 months. Having not returned for such a long time, and now that his foundation establishment was complete, he naturally had to go back. So, he thought of purchasing materials for crafting the 7 Luminaries heart lamp in the Qingyun market before heading back to Qingzhou Mountain or the Red Leaf Valley market. Chongqing, I've been away for quite a long time on this trip, and now that I've succeeded in foundation establishment, I should also make a trip back. I will come to find you afterward, Shiyu. Upon hearing this, Wuxia said softly. Having been on her cultivation journey for a while and now that she had succeeded in foundation establishment, she needed to go back to report and inform her master. Alright, when you do, just come directly to Qingzhou Mountain or the Red Leaf Valley Market and contact me. Lu Chongqing nodded in agreement. The two of them did not linger. They packed up their things, cleaned out the cave dwelling, and prepared to leave. As he left the cave, Lu Chongqing put on his mask artifact once again, reverting to the disguised appearance he had before. This mask was no longer the lower-grade magical instrument he had initially bought, the 100 Changes mask. It was a higher-grade magical instrument with a similar effect. Once disguised, unless faced with a foundation establishment cultivator using a special technique or divine skills for seeing through illusions, it was usually impenetrable. Wuxia, however, did not disguise herself. When she rented the cave dwelling with a token, she had already revealed her identity. And her situation was different from Lu Changsheng's, she had no such concerns. The two of them opened the cave dwelling and were ready to go downhill to the rental office to return it. At a distance, a young man noticed that Wuxia's cave dwelling opened with a boom. He immediately got up, his face full of joy as he came forward to congratulate her. But when he saw Wuxia walking out of the cave closely with an ordinary-looking young man, his body suddenly stiffened, and his previously smiling face turned extremely unsightly. Meng brother. At this moment, Wuxia also saw the young man and was somewhat surprised. I heard that Shiyu was here attempting foundation establishment, so I came to congratulate you. Meng Yibai, with his face looking a bit gloomy and unpleased, said. After speaking, he transformed into a streak of escape light and left, entering a nearby, meaning second, character cave dwelling. He knew Wuxia was renting a cave dwelling to attempt foundation establishment and thus stayed outside waiting after he noticed the anomaly in nature's spiritual energy. He had hoped to immediately congratulate her upon her exit to win the affection of a beautiful person. For this, he even prepared a special gift. But he never expected that Wuxia would walk out with a man. And that the two of them would show such intimate behavior, looking very much like a couple. He had guessed from the anomaly in nature's spiritual energy that there might be 2 people in the cave trying for foundation establishment. But he had not considered the possibility of the other being a man. After all, Wuxia was known in the Qingyun sect as Fairy Shiyu, famous for her aloofness and pride. She rarely interacted with people, let alone men. And yet, the usually cold and dignified Fairy Shiyu was now showing a gentle smile and affectionate behavior towards a man. Thinking about the two of them attempting foundation establishment together and staying in the dwelling for months, Meng Yibai felt sick to his stomach. Slut. The more Meng Yibai thought about it, the angrier he became, punching the cave's wall in frustration and grinding his teeth in resentment. I thought she was so cold and aloof, but now it seems she's nothing special. Who is this person, and why don't I remember such a person in our sect? Meng Yibai, thinking of Lu Changsheng's appearance, had eyes filled with intense murderous intent. Chapter 321. If you feel bad about it, have a few children already proud and arrogant, he couldn't swallow the affront he encountered at that moment. As for Wuxia, he didn't dare to offend her, so he immediately shifted all the blame onto Lu Chongqing. This person's name is Meng Yibai, the grandson of a false core immortal from our sect. It seems he came over upon hearing about my foundation establishment in the marketplace, to offer his congratulations. Xiao Xie watched Meng Yibai leave with an unsightly expression, and to prevent Lu Chongqing from misunderstanding, she explained softly. This person must have some pursuit towards Shiyu. Otherwise, his face wouldn't look so troubled. Lu Chongqing chuckled and said. He thought it was fortunate that he had disguised himself. Otherwise, he might have incurred someone's resentment just because of this. After all, the trouble brought by beauty is something no one can be certain of. Xiao Xie nodded slightly in agreement. Although she practiced the great art of forgetting emotions, which made her emotions detached, she was not ignorant of human relationships and worldly affairs. Naturally, she also knew the other party had such intentions. If the disciples of the Qingyun sect found out that Fairy Shiyu was pursued and won over by me, wouldn't I be chased to the ends of the earth? Lu Chongqing joked. He was not jealous because of this. If Xiao Xie had no suitors in the Qingyun sect, he wouldn't believe it himself. Just like in the Nine Dragons market, Lu Miaoge had many suitors. But in the end, it was he, Lu, who had more charm and won the Bowtie's favor. It's not that exaggerated. Upon hearing his words, the corners of Xiao Xie's mouth lifted upwards. A hint of joy bubbled up in her heart. Immediately afterward, the two arrived at their cave-dwelling rental. When the caretaker Han saw Xiao Xie and Lu Chongqing come, judging by their appearances and auras, he knew that they had both succeeded in their foundation establishment. One sign was the anomaly of the nature's spiritual energy vortex earlier, which indicated successful foundation establishment. The other sign was that, if foundation establishment failed, even with foundation establishment elixirs, one's energy would be weak and disordered in the short term. But Xiao Xie and Lu Chongqing had mana that showed no signs of weakness or disorder, deep and profound like an ocean, which made him feel it was unfathomable. Congratulations to Xiao Shishu on successful foundation establishment, and to this senior on successful foundation establishment. May your path to the great Tao be promising. Caretaker Han immediately bowed deeply. Now that Xiao Xie had achieved foundation establishment, her status had naturally risen. Before, he was able to call her junior sister, due to joining the sect earlier and being older. Now he naturally had to address her as Shishu, and refer to Lu Chongqing as senior. Xiao Shishu, when you were undertaking foundation establishment, Immortal Du and Meng Yibai, Meng Shishu, came here and asked about you. Immortal Du, upon knowing you were attempting foundation establishment, instructed that no one should disturb you, Caretaker Han continued, taking the opportunity to remind her. Though this matter wasn't something big, he felt it was still necessary to inform Xiao Xie. After all, she was not only a disciple of a nascent soul immortal but had also achieved foundation establishment. If she could leave a good impression, it might be beneficial for her future. Upon hearing this, Xiao Xie nodded slightly. She had already seen Meng Yibai just now. As for Immortal Du, she knew he was a false core immortal presiding over the Qingyun market. The fact that he ordered not to disturb her was clearly a show of goodwill. Thank you, Brother Han. Xiao Xie bowed slightly in response. She naturally knew that in the Qingyun sect, one's status greatly increased upon breaking through to the foundation establishment stage. A Qi refinement disciple must address a foundation establishment disciple as Shishu. However, she was not accustomed to such a title yet, especially since Caretaker Han was 20 to 30 years her senior. This Fairy Shiyu and this person seemed to have an extraordinary relationship. Not only did they establish their foundations together, but they also stayed in the cave dwelling for so long. After Xiao Xie and Lu Chongqing left, Caretaker Han was inwardly shocked. He had felt before that the relationship between Lu Chongqing and Xiao Xie was not ordinary. This was why he mentioned not only Immortal Du but also Meng Yibai. After all, young Master Meng was not one with a good temper. If he saw the close relationship between Lu Chongqing and Xiao Xie, he might cause trouble. But what does it have to do with me? Caretaker Han shook his head, deciding not to think further. Having managed affairs for so many years, he knew that there were things one shouldn't be curious about if it wasn't necessary. Chongqing, that Immortal Du is an elder of our sect. Since I've come to the market to break through Foundation establishment, it's only right for me to pay a visit in both sentiment and etiquette, Xiao Xie said to Lu Chongqing. If she hadn't known about it, it wouldn't matter. But now that she was aware of Immortal Du, and he knew of her visit, it would be inappropriate not to pay a visit. All right, you go ahead. I happen to need to buy some things as well, Lu Chongqing smiled and nodded, indicating that after he finished his shopping, he would head straight back to Qingzhou Mountain. Xiao Xie returned to her usual cool demeanor, showing a hint of tenderness. She then hugged Lu Chongqing somewhat reluctantly. Meng Yibai, just down from Core Peak, saw this scene. His already unpleasant expression turned as dark as liver, his fists clenched tight, with murderous intent in his eyes. Before, he had comforted himself, thinking that the two were just friends and therefore somewhat affectionate. But seeing Xiao Xie take the initiative to embrace Lu Chongqing now, to say there was nothing between them would be something not even he could believe. He walked towards the cave-dwelling rentals with an expressionless face. It seems I need to be careful with this person, Lu Chongqing also noticed the expressionless Meng Yibai and thought to himself. As a man, he naturally understood men. He could see that someone like Meng Yibai, who radiated vigorous and sharp energy, must have an extremely proud personality. Seeing the object of his pursuit intimate with another might lead him to malice simply out of displeasure. Shortly after, they parted ways, and Lu Chongqing headed toward the inner city. He planned to deal with some possessions and buy some materials.